Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. Bring in Season 2 Part 11 of What If the Transformers Were in My Hero Academia. Link in the description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Chapter 21, Roll to the Rescue. MMPH, W-Wa, Nimari began to stir awake, immediately aware of the small pain that was pounding through her head. It was clear that she had been knocked out, but by who or what, she wasn't sure. Had a mission gone awry? Was there some sorry excuse for a villain who needed to get their ass kicked? And most importantly, did they grope her while she was unconscious? Because if anyone did do that last one, so help me God, they'll wish they were never born. The heroine thought to herself. Come on, Midnight, what's the last thing you remember? You were out on a date with Brian and, oh God. No, it must have all been a dream. Giant transforming robots from outer space wanting to kidnap me. And I went on a date with one of them. What a crock. A chuckle escaped her throat as she spoke to herself in reassurance. Hey, yes, it must have just been a hallucination. But Midnight's words caught in her throat the moment her eyes opened. She was in an absolutely massive room, and judging by the computer consoles off to her right, they were made for much bigger beings than her. And they seemed to be much more technologically advanced as well. What's more, the fact that there was a giant, winged bot standing with his back toward her was all she needed to confirm her fears. Or not. She glanced to her left and was met with Bumblebee, the little yellow bot shackled just as she was. And there's my date. Wow, that explanation will be fun to hear. However, it was then that she noticed the way that she and Bee were shackled. They were floating up above a round, metal platform and their restraints seemed to be of the same type of metal. Their arms were spread out to their sides while their feet were bound together, which only brought one thing to mind. Okay, why the hell are we T-posing? Midnight's voice rang out through the room, getting Thundercracker's attention. Ah, good, you're awake. He faced her and strolled forward, his red optics zeroed on in her. As much as Midnight could feel fear coursing through her, she had to remain resolute. After all, what kind of hero would she be if she didn't? Thundercracker seemed to notice this, though. Relax, I'm not going to hurt you. I have orders to keep you unharmed, at least for the next 2 hours. The R-rated heroine rose a brow to the Seeker. Oh, really? Well, considering the fact that I'm talking to a giant alien robot, what do you plan on doing to me then? Lemme guess, torture. Probe. Because lemme tell ya, Buster, I'm into some kinky shit, and I'd probably be able to withstand both. What the pit are you talking about? Thundercracker asked with narrowed optics. And what does kinky mean? Midnight's brows rose in surprise. Oh, right, you're a robot. You probably have no idea what humans do when they get down and dirty. She couldn't help but bite her lips and squirm a little bit. MMPH, being shackled like this and just thinking about it is, gah, what am I saying? Focus, Midnight. Oh, of course, your mating rituals. Thundercracker said with a sneer. Honestly, I have no idea how you organics can revel in such pleasure. It's weird. Well, of course you'd say that. You probably don't have any genitals, blue boy. The name is Thundercracker, lady. The Seeker lifted his pulse rifle slightly to make sure Midnight could see it. And I suggest you remember it. I'm your warden around here for the moment, so until the Autobots get back to us with their answer, I suggest you make yourself comfortable. The Decepticon turned his back to her again, but her interest was piqued. Autobots, is that what he is? Midnight craned her head back toward Bumblebee, seeing the red insignia on his foot. Then what would that make you? A Decepticon, lady. Thundercracker gestured to the purple insignia on his wings. I suggest you remember it. Because soon, this planet and its energon resources will be under Lord Megatron's control. And if you're lucky, he'll let your race live. Megatron. Sounds like a real charmer. Midnight paused again the moment she heard mechanical whirring, along with the sound of raspy groans. She snapped her head back around and saw Bumblebee starting to come around, his blue optics in a slight daze before he realized just where he was. Brian. Bee whipped his own head around, stunned to see his date trapped along with him. ZRKT, Midnight. ZKRT, what are you, ZKRT, doing here? Nimari sighed with a slight pout. They've captured us both, I'm afraid, not exactly one of my best moments." She brought her eyes back to his in concern. "What about you? Are you alright? Any injuries, or damages?" ZRKT, "No, not really." B shrugged before moving his head down in shame. ZRKT, "I'm sorry." ZRKT, "This must be, ZRTK, the worst date, ZRKT, you've ever been on, ZRKT, right? Well, it's probably the most interesting one, I'll grant you that." Midnight said, send NG him a sympathetic gaze. "But I have to ask, why the facade? Why deliberately present yourself as a human like you did? And," she glanced away nervously, "why accept my date offer? I figure you must have felt uncomfortable with my flirting because you're an alien robot and have no experience with human romance, so why were you still willing to go out with me?" Bumblebee's optics widened in shock. ZRTK, no, that's not. ZRKT, why I was, ZRKT, uncomfortable. Midnight was surprised at his response as he went on. ZRKT, the reason was, ZRKT, because I was actually, ZRKT, a little intimidated by your, ZRKT, flirting. He looked away sheepishly. ZRKT, I never had anyone, ZRKT, flirt with me, ZRKT, before. ZRKT, it was a bit, ZRKT, strange. Nimari couldn't help but feel a little guilty now. This little bot had never had any experience with romance before and she had forced that onto him. "Oh, I see. I'm sorry that. ZRKT, but then, ZRKT, you showed me a different side to you today." Bumblebee went on, once again stunning the R-rated heroine. ZRKT, one that's genuinely, ZRKT, a very nice person. ZRKT, someone who likes, ZRKT, to have fun. Even though he was wearing a mouth guard, Midnight could see just by his features that he was smiling underneath it. ZRKT, and I like to have fun. ZRKT, I really did enjoy our date. ZRKT, Midnight, ZRKT, for however long it lasted. Midnight's jaw had dropped by that point. Here she was, face to face with probably one of the kindest souls she had ever come across. It made her remember why she had wanted to ask him out in the first place, because she could tell that he was an extremely nice person and she could tell that he'd be fun, voice or no. Even though Bumblebee was a robot, the face he put on as Brian hadn't stopped his personality from shining through. "Bumblebee, I don't know what to say," Midnight admitted. "Your kindness, gentle nature, and selflessness," once again, she couldn't help but squirm slightly. "Ooh, it's enough to turn any woman on." She saw his optics widen and giggled at his expression. "Hee, relax, I'm only half joking. But I mean it, any woman would be lucky to have someone as nice and considerate as you, so thank you for trying to make this night special." B's smile came back and he gave her a nod. ZRKT, you're welcome, ZRKT, Midnight. So, if you don't mind me asking, what do Midoriya, Jiro, Yaoyorozu, and I'm assuming the other kids, have to do with all this? Bumblebee brightened up and replied in a deep voice, ZRKT, teenagers with attitude. Midnight couldn't help but burst out laughing. It was a dated reference, but she got it all the same. Haha, I see. So you and your Autobot friends have some help in acclimating to Earth through the students. And they have been helping you train them, not the military. Interesting, she trailed off as she thought back to the two people she most often saw, Brian, with. So that means, Buck and Sadie. I'm guessing they're Autobots, too. ZRKT, oh yeah. ZRKT, RC, ZRKT, and Bulkhead, ZRKT, are some of my closest friends. RC, huh, she the pink one. B nodded to Midnight, which made her smile deviously. I see, and you must have a thing for her, right? And just like that, B's optics nearly popped out of their sockets yet again, and he quickly tried to brush it off. ZRKT, ha, what? No way. ZRKT, RC, ZRKT, is just a close friend, I assure you. Midnight rose her head knowingly. Is that so? Then tell me, why is it that you always glance to her whenever I flirt with you? Or why she seems to get so flustered when I do so? At this point, Bumblebee was beginning to tremble. She was right on the money, and she knew it. Bumblebee, if this is about us. ZRKT, well, yes and no, ZRKT, kinda. Oh relax, it's alright. Midnight rolled her eyes. Trust me, I know young love when I see it. She sent him a wink in reassurance. And besides, I had a feeling that there must have been some reason why RC was so agitated by my presence. She must have been afraid that I'd steal you away. If Bumblebee were human, he'd probably be blushing so hard right now. ZRKT, I don't know. Once again, he lowered his head, unsure of what she was saying. ZRKT, I'm not sure if, ZRKT, she even likes me in that way. ZRKT, we've been friends for, ZRKT, millennia. ZRKT, I don't think, ZRKT, RC, ZRTK, would imagine us as, ZRKT, anything more. A wistful smile took hold of Midnight's features. Ah, young, complicated love, that's somehow much older than me. She wished she could just move over and give the yellow beetlebot an encouraging hug. Bumblebee, romance isn't easy, take it from me. There's a lot of bumps in the road, a lot of give and take, and plenty of sacrifice involved. No doubt you two have had to experience a lot of that over the course of this war. B craned his head back up to her, listening to what she had to say. But believe me when I say that there's a happy ending out there for everyone, and I think that you two are no different. ZRKT, you think so? I know so, even if I personally haven't found mine yet. Midnight admitted. But someday, I will, preferably before I hit 40. She shook her head to get back on track. The point is that if you need help, don't be afraid to ask. B couldn't help but be nervous at that. ZRKT, you're willing to help. ZRKT, even though, ZRKT, RC, ZRKT, is technically a rival. The R-rated hero chuckled at that. Hee, Bumblebee, you're very sweet, and I really like you, believe me. Plus, I wouldn't mind a couple more dates with you in the future. But in terms of true love, I can tell there's something between you and RC, and to get in the way of that would just be criminal. She gave him one more wink. And remember, I'm a hero, after all. The two shared a chuckle at that, before hearing a murmur from somewhere else in the room. Midnight saw Thundercracker move slightly and narrowed her eyes at him. And what do you have to say? Nothing. Thundercracker denied suddenly. Just, collecting myself. Can't get distracted. You've been awfully silent this whole time. Midnight noted. Would have expected a villainous robot like you to have some sort of snide comment. Thundercracker's head perked up and he turned to her, furrowing his metal brow. Villain. Lady, I'm a soldier fighting a war for a cause I believe in. He went up to her and lowered his head to her eye level. Not all Decepticons have a cruel streak, you know. A lot of us just do what we're told in order to bring about the future we're hoping for. Is that so? Then what would that be, mister? The Seeker straightened himself up, peering down to her with a soft glare. The name's Thundercracker. And if you must know, I'm fighting for a future where our home planet isn't restricted by the old ways. He moved so his back was to her once again. Again, not every Decepticon has a cruel streak. Most do, but others like myself are just fighting for what our leader, Megatron, first set out to do, bring about peace by dismantling functionism. Midnight raised a brow at that. And what is functionism? A societal idea which dictated that every Cybertronian's place in the world was dictated by what they transformed into. Thundercracker sneered. It's a restrictive, outdated idea put in place eons ago by the High Council of Cybertron, one which Megatron sought to put to an end with the Decepticon movement. He craned his head back and glanced to Midnight out the corner of his eye. Megatron believed that no one should be restricted by their alt mode, and that everyone had a choice to be what they wanted to be. The woman's blue eyes widened in surprise and she glanced over to Bumblebee. Are you sure they're the bad guys? B sighed and urged Thundercracker to go on. ZRKT, tell her the rest. The Blue Seeker's expression hardened and he growled, though he couldn't deny what happened shortly afterward. While many of us followed Megatron for the goal he set out for, many more followed once he revealed his ulterior motive. He lowered his head as he recalled that day. Turns out, Lord Megatron grew a strong resentment against the Cybertronian High Council, and wanted to be named the next Prime by force. The Council denied him, and that's when he unleashed his dark vision. He renamed our faction, Decepticons, and from there, well, you can probably guess what happened. So your leader didn't get what he wanted and went on a warmongering rampage afterward. Nimue concluded, with Bumblebee nodding to her. Yep, that sounds like a supervillain backstory to me. She raised a brow at Thundercracker. But if you don't approve of the Khan's cruel methods, then why are you still with them? She saw Thundercracker's grip on his weapon tighten, and gave a small gasp as he turned back to her. Because, Earth Woman, I am a warrior. But I was not able to become one until after I joined Megatron's cause. Before, I was forced to be a scientist, just like every other jet. But as a seeker, I'm able to do what I've always wanted to rule the skies with no one as my equal. He wore a slightly proud smile. Not to brag, but while I'm the youngest of my brothers, I am the best flyer. Midnight couldn't help but frown in disappointment. I see, and you're alright with that. Going along with all of the bad things your comrades do even if you don't approve. Thundercracker took a deep intake before sighing again. That was a question he had asked himself every day, and each time, he came back to the same justification. If it allows me to be the bot I want to be, then so be it. He went over and leaned up against the wall. But I don't see much of a point in getting you humans involved, much less hurting you over all this. Much to Midnight's shock, she could swear she heard some sympathy in Thundercracker's voice. Your race is so fragile. Undeserving of our cruelty. If I could stop this, I would, but it's not my decision to make. He bowed his head to her. I'm sorry, Earth Woman. Midnight. My name is Midnight, the R-rated heroine said with resolve. I suggest you remember it. Because when we get out of here, I will do everything I can to help our planet stay safe. Thundercracker blinked at her in surprise a couple times, and a small smirk came to his lips. Alright, Midnight. I will. Just then, the tumblers in the prison door began to move and it opened up, allowing none other than the aerial assault team to come in. Ah, there you are. Nimue's eyebrows shot up at the sight. You three. Runway grinned and placed her hands on her hips. Ah, good, you're awake. Lord Starscream will be pleased to hear that. Ha ha ha. Oh, just you wait, lady. Jetstorm cackled, rubbing his hands together. Our commander has some special ideas waiting for you. You'll be quite surprised at what he's got planned to make you squeal. Midnight couldn't help but smirk at that wording. Is that right? If he wanted me to squeal, I would have been happy to do so under the right circumstances. She stuck her tongue out and licked her lips, squirming in place once more. All I need is a whip, some toys and a set of cuffs and I'd be squealing in no time. Bumblebee's head went straight down in shame. ZRKT, so this is what we've been reduced to. Lady, I'm not sure what you're talking about. Sonar piped up. But let me tell you, if it's a whip you want, then I'm sure Starscream must have one, but trust me, you're not gonna like it when he uses it on ya. He eyed Thundercracker and crossed his arms. So, boss, what do we do while we wait? Just stand guard. Pretty much, and I suggest you get comfortable. Thundercracker advised. We're gonna be here for a while. The Minicons mumbled amongst themselves while Midnight and Bumblebee exhaled in exasperation. They were really going to just hang here for the next hour and a half. Boring. It was then, however, that Midnight saw the monitor and computer console again, and an idea sprang into her head. Well, if we're stuck here for a while, she made sure all four cons had their attention on her as she suggested, maybe we could watch a little TV. If anything, this only made them all confused. TV. Like Gallic TV? Jetstorm asked. I don't know if we can even get a signal on this backwater planet. And even then, it's basically just boring news these days. Well, we have human TV here on Earth. Midnight suggested. Maybe you could tune into that signal. Is this some sort of trick? Thundercracker demanded, raising his pulse rifle. Because if it's some sort of escape attempt. Thundercracker, I swear, it's no trick. The UA teacher assured. Really, I just thought we could all use something to keep from getting bored, you know. We could watch a movie, or a show, just to keep us entertained. Midnight tilted her head toward Bee with a quirked brow. I mean, I'm sure that Bee's been on Earth long enough to vouch for human TV, right? While Bee was still a bit confused, he couldn't deny that he did enjoy watching Earth TV, so he nodded. Cybertronian approval right there. Runway tapped her chin in thought. I dunno, seems kinda, wait, what? She saw Thundercracker move over to the console, and the Seeker started typing in a command. Thundercracker. Boss, what are you doing? Sonar asked. The Seeker rolled his optics as he continued typing. Seeing if this human television is all that it's cracked up to. Whoa. Thundercracker was taken aback the moment he caught the signal, tapping into a satellite TV network and picking up on a channel right away. Immediately, he saw several people clad in colorful spandex with matching helmets that all had a matching theme to them. And what's more, they were posing while backed with colorful explosions. What the heck is this? ZRKT, teenagers with attitude. But once those spandex-clad heroes started speaking Japanese, Midnight felt the need to correct him. Well, not quite, B. But you're very close, hee. Thanks for healing my jacks up, recovery girl. Oh, it's no problem at all, dearie. The elderly youthful heroine replied. After all, we can't have you going into battle with your quirk in disarray, now can we? Kyoka smiled and bowed her head gratefully. Of course. The group of Autobots, teachers and students had made their way to Autobot Outpost Omega-1, and they were making their final preparations before commencing the rescue operation. She and Recovery Girl were sitting in the medical bay, all while Red Alert made his own arrangements not too far away. In case anyone got hurt on this mission, be it bot or human, they'd need the med bay at maximum readiness. The earphone jack user was also in her costume. Her black leather jacket, salmon pink undershirt with rips near the hem, loose black pants, her subwoofer boots and her white fingerless gloves with the wrist-mounted speakers. She had yet to put on her blue and red headphones, but she had painted the red triangles under her eyes, so she was nearly set to go. I must say, though, dearie, don't you think you'd need a bit more protection? Recovery Girl noted. If you're going up against these Decepticons, I think you might want to have some armor. I'll be okay, Kyoka assured, though she rolled her eyes. Besides, if Yaomomo has no worries going dressed in her outfit, then what do I have to be scared about? Bah, I certainly wish that girl would reconsider her choice in hero wear. Recovery Girl waved her syringe cane in protest. I understand she needs to be able to use her quirk effectively, but there are better ways than having her chest out on full display for everyone to gawk at. Kyoka stood up and put on her headphones, ready to head out. Yeah, well, her costume does still meet the required coverage limit, so good luck convincing her to change it. Thanks again, ma'am. No problem, dear. And what do you know? Your boyfriend is here to escort you, hee. The perplexed eyes widened and her head whipped around to see Izuku waiting near the medbay entrance. And much to her surprise, he had quite a bit of a change to his costume. It was the same emerald green that she had suggested before, but now it had some extra details that made it even cooler than it had been before. For one, he now had extra padded black leg armor that went down from his thighs all the way to his signature red shoes, complete with knee pads. He also had a new red blet, and nearly all the white detailing from before was now black. The only exception was the harness around his collarbone and his gloves, which had some blue stripes around the cuffs now. And finally, his respirator mask was now made of metal, and while still somewhat keeping the teeth pattern, it was a lot less obvious, especially with the point near the front. Overall, he looked awesome, and she couldn't help but notice how well he filled out the whole suit, no baggy parts to speak of. Damn, how is it he's gotten even more ripped? But then Kyoka's cheeks heated up at the sudden thought. Gah, what the hell am I saying? She whipped her head back to Recovery Girl as Izuku came walking in. He is not my boyfriend. Kyoka whispered harshly. Oh, perhaps not now, dearie. Recovery Girl winked and touched her nose. But I've seen that look you just gave him several times before. I suggest you do something about it before it's too late, because let me tell you, as much as the boy breaks his bones, I can tell he'd also be quite the catch for someone your age. Hey. Izuku waved over. What are you guys talking about? Nothing. Kyoka exclaimed, taking Izuku aback. Nothing at all, ha. No secret discussions here, no sir. She saw Izuku furrow his brow, his curiosity obviously not sated. Hey, you're looking pretty awesome in that new costume, Izuku. The brunette's eyebrows rose up, his features quickly overtaken by a sheepish grin. Oh, you think so? He scratched his cheek nervously as they reddened. Yeah, it is pretty cool. Honestly, I had no idea that the support group, or rather, Hatsume, was upgrading it before now. Izuku glanced behind him toward the control room, no doubt where the mad inventor was with the others. She kept this secret pretty well hidden, I'll say that. Though I really wish she didn't remove my hood. Wait, she did. Bunny ears and all. Izuku deadpanned at that. Yeah, but she said it was so she could make some better headgear for me. He shrugged. I really couldn't tell you what she meant by that. Kyoka hummed and went up to take a closer inspection of all of the intricate details of Izuku's new costume, which didn't help much with the boy's nerves. Well, I gotta say, she did pretty well with it overall. Wonder if it'll be able to withstand the new way you use your quirk. Izuku gave her a shrug. Only one way to find out, right? Come on, the others are waiting for us. Yeah, right. Kyoka nodded before waving back to the nurse. We'll see you later, recovery girl. And I promise I won't come back with anything broken. Izuku added hastily. Recovery girl furrowed her brow and waved her cane at him. I certainly hope not, Sonny. Any more broken arms or legs and pretty soon, you won't have many bones to speak of. The duo flinched, but the youthful heroine's demeanor changed back to a happy one. Now, I suggest you all go. Red alert, dear, you should as well. Things are about to get underway. Of course, Red replied, giving a brief smile to the old woman. And I appreciate you giving me some help in the med bay, recovery girl. Hopefully we won't need it, but better to be safe than sorry. Recovery girl agreed before shooing them off. Now go, you're all needed. The two teenagers and the medic all proceeded toward their destination. The control room, where every Autobot, hero and student were all gathered around. Izuku and Kyoka saw every one of their classmates in their costumes, from Tenya's engine-themed armor, to Mina's teal and purple splotchy bodysuit with white mask and her furry overcoat with matching boots. Ochako was in her navy and pink skin-tight jumpsuit, holding her clear domed helmet in her hands as she watched Denki slip on his own black jacket. So, you didn't ask for any upgrades to your costume, Kaminari? The brunette asked. Nah, couldn't think of any. The electric blonde admitted. Well, aside from one thing. He reached into the suitcase for his costume, and pulled out a pair of dark blue shades with rather dynamically shaped lenses. I exchanged my clunky communicator with something a bit cooler. He flung the shades on and struck a pose. So, what'd you think, Uraraka? Am I snazzy or what? Ochako slightly winced at that, but she kept a smile even as a drop of sweat fell down her forehead. Oh, why yeah, sure. You're something alright. That's putting it mildly. Kyoka quipped as she and Izuku approached. You look like a rejected anime protag, Kaminari. And just like that, the electrification quirk user slumped over. Aw, man. Come on Jiro, why'd ya have to ruin it, huh? Someone around here has to keep you grounded in reality. Kyoka rolled her eyes. It was then, however, that Ochako noticed Izuku's new costume, and her eyes widened. Whoa, Deku, your new hero costume is so cool. Hey, yeah man. Eijiro suddenly spoke up from behind, giving Izuku a pat on the shoulder. Those new additions are freaking sweet. And that new respirator is pretty awesome, too. A smile came to the greenette at the redhead's compliment. Oh, thanks Kirishima, and I see you added something to your costume, too. Those sleeves are new, right? Eijiro lifted his arm, showing that he did indeed have some new sleeves on his hero costume. Yeah, Mr. Aizawa suggested that I should add them, just so I don't hurt any innocent civilians with my quirk by accident. Thought it was a pretty good idea. He raised his head slightly as Tenya and Mina came over to meet them, and the hardening user placed his hands on his hips eagerly. So, we all ready to go? Fairly soon, Tenya replied, his voice echoing in his helmet. The only one left is Yaoyorozu, and then we'll be ready. Mina couldn't help but squirm in excitement, balling her hands up near her chest. This is gonna be so amazing. All of this training over the past couple of weeks and it's gonna be paying off with this rescue mission. She slammed her hand into her palm and wore a huge, eager grin. Let's show our teachers that we've got what it takes, guys. Denki raised a fist of his own and cheered, hell yeah, I'm right there, with you, but the blonde trailed off when he saw someone headed their way, his eyes widening in shock. Guys. Kaminari, oh my god. Kyoko was as stunned as Denki was when she saw what he had, and it was evident that everyone else was, too. And as much as they knew how weird it was to stare at their friend like this, they just couldn't help it. It was none other than Momo, but to their surprise, she wasn't in her usual hero costume. No, she was in something almost entirely new. The only thing that wasn't new was her boots, which were the same as the ones from her first costume. But from the knees up, it was almost entirely different. Instead of the rather glaring one-piece that showed off a lot of her cleavage, instead, she was wearing a two-piece costume. She had a pair of red short shorts with a white line going down their sides for her bottoms, and her top was a crimson zip-up that had white trim on the collar piece, down the zipper line, and around armholes. Her midriff, lower back, arms and most of her legs were still exposed, but it was still roughly the same amount of skin that she had shown with her prior suit, if not a bit more. Momo instantly saw their astonishment and sheepishly shied away a bit. Hi guys. Why yao Momo, Ochako muttered, her smile coming back. You look so cool. I do. Yeah, you look great. Kyoko said with a supportive grin. Where the heck did you get? Ta-da. All of a sudden, Mei leapt out from behind Momo and thrust her hands toward the creation quirk user, though this made the girl feel a bit more embarrassed than she had been before. So, you guys like the new outfit I made for Yao Momo? Who am I kidding? I heard two voices of approval, so I'm sure all of you like it. Eijiro couldn't help but chuckle at that. Hey, I mean, yeah, of course we do. Mei, I'm kinda surprised, though. When did you get the idea to make Momo a new costume? Mei cheerfully explained with a raised finger. After the USJ incident, everyone's costumes were brought straight to the support group so that we could fix them up for everyone. And it was there that I discovered that Momo's costume was a bit unflattering. She heard a small mumble next to her and she immediately pointed at Momo. Now don't be a grumpy Gus about it, we all know it's true. Didn't expect you to be into. I wasn't, Mei. Momo pressed firmly, her lips in a pout as she folded her arms over her chest. It was for practicality. I need to have as much skin exposed as I can so that my quirk can be useful. The mad inventor took her words in stride. And that, I get, but ya really don't want some scummy villain goin' for your honkers in the middle of a fight, do ya? Everyone yelped and all faced away from one another at the choice of words, aside from Mina, who laughed out loud. Bahahaha. You've gotta admit, Yaomomo, she has a point. Ha ha ha. Mina, stop it. Momo pleaded, her cheeks almost as red as her costume. And you, too, Mei. I would prefer it if you don't talk about my chest like that. Sorry, Yaomomo. Mei waved, acting surprisingly casual about the whole thing. But trust me, you're gonna love the new outfit. She went behind Momo again and pointed to the small of her back. Some improvements I've made include a new exposed back area. You never know when you might need to create something behind you to stop bad guys. Mei then pointed down to Momo's new shorts. And these short shorts may look tight, but they breathe really well, same with your top. And it allows for unhindered mobility, unlike those heavy belts you had before. Momo had to admit, she did feel a tad more mobile in this costume. Yes, you do make a good point, wait. She rounded back to Mei and raised an eyebrow at her. Where are my belts? I had my research book with that and I need that so I know how to create special objects. Mei sent a reassuring wave to her friend. Don't worry, you'll find that I shipped them all back to your place, because I got you something better. Follow me. With skeptic eyes, the teens all followed Mei over to a table near the far corner of the room, one that was covered by a sheet. Mei grabbed the edge of it and lifted it slightly. Alrighty, prepare to feast your eyes in 3, 2, 1, feast. With a quick yank, Mei pulled the sheet off, and the others were met with a surprising sight. Before them was what appeared to be some sort of headset and wrist gauntlet, the latter with a small keypad on it. While it was intriguing, it also confused plenty of them. Mei. Ochako asked. What is it? Why, it's Yaomomo's new streamlined portable database, of course. My what? Momo's eyes widened further. A database. Mei picked up the gauntlet and presented it to her. Yep, allow me to present the Yaoyoro database. I've copied every single thing from inside your book and more into this little wrist-mounted gauntlet. Simply type in what formula you want. She reached down and grabbed the headset. And it'll pop up for you on this. The Momo visor. It's a heads-up display, and a stylish accessory. Go on, try it. Momo's brow furrowed curiously, but nevertheless, she decided to give it a whirl. She took the gauntlet, opened it up, and then clamped it shut around her wrist. Thankfully, it didn't hinder any movement, and it kept her hand exposed for creation. She then placed the headset on so that the band fastened around the back of her head, which surprisingly enough, did so automatically. Before she knew it, the visor activated, and her eyes were covered in a holographic HUD that she could still see through clearly. In fact, she was pretty sure her vision had improved a bit. Oh, and Red helped me so that the visor actually aids in your sight, by the way. May mentioned, as if reading Momo's mind. You wouldn't believe how long it took me to get that right. The creation user lifted her arm and typed in something simple, steel. Before she knew it, Momo had the necessary building blocks of steel presented before on her visor, which took her aback. Oh my. So, May raised a knowing brow to the raven-haired girl. You like. I love. Momo brightened up and gave a happy laugh, which was infectious to everyone. Haha. Oh my goodness, this is amazing. It's like I have everything I need literally at my fingertips. She turned to May and quickly gave the genius a hug. May, I cannot thank you enough. You just gave me one of the best suit upgrades that any hero has ever had. May could do nothing more but shrug as she returned the embrace. It's what I do. Damn, I need her to make some gear for me. Denki noted. Mina bounced around excitedly. Yeah, me too. May, the stuff you made for Momo is fantastic. I wanna see what kinda stuff you can make that suits my quirk. An excited grin quickly took hold of the inventor. Ooh, I thought you'd never ask. I knew that studying your quirks for the last couple of weeks would pay off. Okay, for starters, we need. Ah. But she was brought to a halt the moment All Might's signature laugh echoed through the room, the students now fully aware that he was right there. Young Hatsume, I admire your enthusiasm for making new inventions for your friends. And students, I appreciate the drive to want to better yourselves for your hero work. He quickly raised his hand. However, we have to remember that we have a mission to do. We're nearly ready to depart, so everyone, report for your assigned teams. Oh, right, All Might. Izuku quickly agreed. Come on guys, let's go. After a few more minutes, once he was certain that everyone was gathered together, Optimus stood before everyone on the ground bridge's platform. Aizawa and All Might were standing with him, the two working with him to coordinate the mission. Ahem, now that everyone seems to be accounted for, it's time we go over the plan. Optimus started. No doubt the Decepticon ship will be heavily guarded, which is why we will be splitting into two groups once we engage the enemy. The infiltration team will be led by myself and Optimus. All Might announced. Our squad will be the ones to break into the Decepticon ship and rescue Midnight and Bumblebee. He then turned his attention to Jazz. Meanwhile, the combat team will be headed by Jazz and Present Mike. Their team's job will be to keep the cons outside busy while we handle the inside job. Hatsume, Red Alert and I, meanwhile, will be coordinating communications back here. Aizawa spoke up, making sure he could be heard through his bandages. We'll also be monitoring the action through the Sky Spy. Hatsume. On it. May sang as she skipped up to the platform with the Sky Spy in hand, rubbing it tenderly. Ooh, it's time to show everyone what you can do, my precious baby. The inventor typed in a command on the back of her device and almost instantly, the satellite panels on its sides flipped out and it started to hover above the ground, much to her delight. Hee, woohoo. No glitches. We pulled it off, Red. Red Alert gave her a supportive nod. Indeed, it seems we have. Now, let's put it to the test. Aizawa too nodded in agreement. Right, but first, we need to do something important. He set his sights onto his 8 students and sighed frustratingly. We only usually do this once the sports festival is over, but, desperate times and all that. You kids will need call signs while on this mission so we can keep track of you. So, he paused for a moment, knowing he'd be hearing this from Midnight after this was over. Have you given any thoughts on your hero names? The kids all wore astonished expressions, many of which quickly transformed to ones of excitement. Whoa, seriously? Mina exclaimed. We get to use hero names on this mission. If you have any. Aizawa stressed. If you haven't decided yet, then feel free to use your normal name for the mission. Tenya placed a hand to his chin. Well, sad to say, I'm one who hasn't decided on one yet. He bowed his head to his teacher in respect. Simply call me, Tenya, for this mission, Mr. Aizawa. Well, I know what I wanna be called. Iroh pounded his fist into his hand. Just call me, Red Riot. Aizawa raised a brow at that. You mean like the pro-hero, Crimson Riot? Well, I can definitely see that you wanna homage him as much as possible. Your hair and outfit are a dead giveaway to that. Eijiro smiled sheepishly and chuckled. Hey, yeah, he was a big inspiration to me wanting to be a hero, so I wanna do right by him. Wow, that's so cool, Kirishima. Mina said excitedly before bouncing on the balls of her feet. As for me, I'm gonna go with, Alien Queen. This took everyone off guard, needless today. Really? Like the horror movie Monster? Aizawa asked again. Interesting thought, but are ya sure you don't want something a bit friendlier? Like maybe, I dunno, Pinky, or something. Mina sent him a pout and crossed her arms. No, I refuse. Besides, I'm very friendly, thank you very much. And besides, the name, Alien Queen, doesn't necessarily have to be associated with a monster, ya know. She jerked her thumb up to the Autobots for emphasis. Besides, they're aliens, aren't they? And they're plenty friendly. Very well, Alien Queen it is. As Mina cheered and jumped up and down victoriously, Aizawa set his sights over to Momo next. And what about you, Yaoyorozu? Momo closed her eyes and placed a hand over her heart. I've known what I've wanted to be called for the longest time, Mr. Aizawa. She stared resolutely and stated, I am the everything hero, Kriti. It's a name I hope to do well by. Seemingly impressed, Aizawa nodded in approval. Okay, not bad. Uraraka, you're up. Oh, I want my hero name to be, Uravity, sir. Ochako put her two pointer fingers together. See, I took my last name and the name of my quirk and put them together to get the name. Simple, but effective in its point. Aizawa approved. Denki couldn't help but facepalm in frustration. Seriously. You guys all thought up such cool names and I can't even think of anything. Kyoka smirked with a slight laugh. Hey, I can think of one for ya, how about jamming yay? Ooh, yeah, that could totally work, Jiro. Denki pumped a fist with a grin of his own. I can see where you're coming from, too. It's because I'm so exciting and charged full of energy, am I right? PSH, no. Kyoka rolled her eyes, covering her mouth slightly. It's because you always get so braindead whenever you use your quirk. Ha ha ha. Come on, Jiro, really. Denki pleaded as everyone else tried to hold in their laughs. Am I seriously never gonna live this side effect down? He groaned and threw his hands up in defeat. Whatever. Call me, Chargebolt. Within seconds, Kaminari's signature cocky grin was restored. Yeah, that's the perfect name for a hero with an electrification quirk. Aizawa sighed, having no patience for their antics. Fine, whatever, so long as you've got your name. He raised a brow over to Kyoka next. And what about you? If your real name is as good as the joke one you came up with, I'm dying to know. Kyoka appreciated the deadpan delivery, but at the same time, she felt that simplicity was the best way to go in this situation. Just call me, the hearing hero, Earphone Jack. Naming yourself after your quirk, yet another common practice. Aizawa deduced. That's acceptable. Finally, he craned his head to the last student, one who he was intentionally saving for last. And of course, there's you, problem child. Have you decided on what your callsign will be? Izuku hesitated for a moment, thinking over the decision he had made in his head. Is this really the name that I want for myself? If I choose it, I'll probably never be able to change, but then he stopped that thought the moment he saw Kyoka, the perplexed smiling supportively to him. She gave him a thumbs up and a wink, and just like that, Izuku's confidence had been boosted again by tenfold. Mr. Aizawa, I have. It's a name that I've had to deal with for a long time, and I won't lie, I used to hate it. He trailed off as he glanced over to the punk rocker, giving her a nod. But someone's recently helped me see all of the positive things that this name can be as well. So, in a way, you could say that this name's been redeemed for me. He furrowed his brow and gave the man one final nod. You can call me Deku, and that's my final say on the matter. Some of the teachers began murmuring amongst themselves at his words while Aizawa remained stoic as ever, considering what the young man had said to him. Of course, he knew that was the insulting name that Bakugo always called him, but still, it was interesting. Choosing to name yourself after what your classmate derides you as. Is it to prove something to him? Or is it out of spite? Guess we'll have to wait and see. With that thought in his mind, Aizawa gave a nod. Alright, we're good to go then. Everyone's got their call signs, so now it's time to assign teams. Indeed. Optimus piped up again. Keep in mind, every one of you not only will be on this small team, but also on either the infiltration or combat teams. I will be designating your positions as such as we go along. He gestured over to All Might and Izuku first. Of course, the two of you will accompany me into battle. Haha. Well, that's quite obvious, my friend. All Might saluted. With our combined might, those Decepticons don't stand a chance, right young Midoriya? He craned his head down to his pupil curiously. Or would you rather I call you by your code name? Hey, either or is fine, All Might. Izuku assured. Optimus nodded in approval. Very good, the next team will actually be a team of 4. Windblade, Kree, Springer and Snipe will be accompanying us on the infiltration team. Momo was actually quite surprised by this. Wait, really? We get to be on a team of 4. We're the only flyers on the squad, Momo. Windblade winked. It just makes sense to stick us together. Yeah, and besides, I know the Khan's prison cells pretty well. Springer added. If anyone's gonna be able to find B in midnight, it's me. He shifted his optics down to Snipe, who was currently loading up his gun for the big fight. Hope you're able to shoot that well, cowboy. You're gonna want to if you wanna take out some Khans. Snipe chuckled at that and spun the revolver in his hand. Big guy, you ain't ever seen an aim quite like mine. Trust me, I'm gonna blow I guess her armor off with how good my aim is. Hey, I look forward to it. Optimus continued from there. Lastly on the infiltration team we have RC, Uravity and 13. Instantly, Ochako's eyes light up and she clasped her hands together in excitement. No way. I'm getting to work with you. She snapped around to 13, the space hero standing directly behind her. Oh my gosh, this is so totally cool. I'll be sure to not disappoint you, 13, I promise. Well aren't you a peach? 13 chuckled, setting her hand on Ochako's shoulder. But don't worry, I'm sure you'll do just fine. And if things get rough, my quirk will be more than enough to help get us out of a tight pinch. She gave a thumbs up to the young brunette. You can count on me. Thanks. Ochako beamed before going back to RC. So, RC, you ready for, she trailed off the moment she RC staring off into space, her gaze hard and her lips turned down. It was a stark contrast to how RC usually was, and it made the gravity user feel uneasy. RC, why you okay? What? RC snapped her head down and sent Ochako a reassuring wave, forcing a smile. Oh, yes, Ochako, I'm fine. Everything's good, don't worry. But Ochako wasn't convinced. You're thinking about Shadow Striker, aren't you? Okay, yes I am, but I'm also worried about B, you know. RC reached up and hugged her arm close to her chest. I can't even imagine what the Decepticons might put him through if we don't rescue him in time. Don't worry, RC, 13 said, raising a gloved hand up to the femme. We'll rescue Bumblebee, I'm sure of it. As a rescue hero, you have my word that he'll be alright. RC paused at that before a more genuine grin came to her features. Thank you, 13, that means a lot. Alright, now it's time for the teams on the combat squad. Prime went on, nodding his head to Jazz first. Of course, Jazz and Present Mike will be leading this entire group, so I believe it would be fitting, his optics moved over to a certain punk rocker. If you were to join them, earphone jack. Kyoka couldn't help but cringe a bit. On the one hand, she was happy that she was teaming with Jazz of all bots. But on the other hand, haha. Sounds good to me, Prime Man. Present Mike exclaimed, his voice reverberating through the whole room. He pointed over to Jazz and Kyoka, grinning from ear to ear. Let's load up and move 'em out. my fellow audio junkies, because this is gonna be off the chain." Jazz was taken aback by his enthusiasm, whispering to Kyoka, "Is he always this excited?" "You have no idea." Kyoka deadpanned, pinching the ridge of her nose. "Optimus, I get where you're coming from, but why?" she muttered to herself. Sideswipe, Ajiro, Optimus gestured down to the angular man made of cement. "You shall be teaming with Cementos." Ajiro grinned eagerly at that, raising a fist up to the kindly teacher. "Oh, hell yeah. Between my rock-hard body, Sideswipe's jackhammers and your cement constructs, nothing will be able to get past us." Cementos merely smiled and chuckled at his readiness. HM, good, keep that spirit about you, boy, and I'm sure we will overcome our enemies." He looked up to Sideswipe and gave him a nod. "And I also anticipate seeing you in action, Sideswipe. I hear you're quite the force to be reckoned with." And just like that, a cocky smirk came to the red bot's face. "Oh, hey, heck yeah, dude." He placed his hands behind his head nonchalantly. "Trust me, with me around, you guys won't have anything to worry about. Aside from your own ego getting in the way again." Strongarm butted in, shooting Sideswipe a warning glance. "Don't fly off the handle out there, punk, you understand me? We're responsible for a lot more humans on this mission, so." Yeah, I get it, Strongarm." Sideswipe waved. "You worry about your team, and I'll worry about mine. How's that sound?" "Fine, okay then." Strongarm crossed her arms. "I'll do that, thank you very much. Optimus, who is on my team?" "That would be Tenya and Ectoplasm," Prime explained as he gestured down to the two, garnering their attention. "Of course, you and Tenya have prior experience working with one another, but I believe that Ectoplasm would be a good fit for you as well." Ectoplasm himself picked up on that and continued, "Indeed, we'll be running interference on the Decepticon threat." He set his white-eyed gaze onto Tenya with a nod. "Between our two quirks, I believe we'll be able to disorient the Decepticons well enough to keep them off of Prime and the others' trails." Tenya immediately saluted to his mathematics teacher. "Sir, I promise I will not fail you in this mission, you have my word." "It's an honor to work with you, sir," Strongarm added with a bow. "Likewise, now let's teach these cons about why it's unwise to mess with UA." The duo agreed with their new teammate before Prime went on to another certain duo. "Bulkhead, you and Mina shall be working with Power Loader on this mission. I trust that he will be able to provide some heavy assistance with the rather interesting device that he's brought." Mina was perplexed by that until she actually saw the support group teacher standing next to said device, which is when she realized that she wasn't the only one who got her name from a certain horror movie. It appeared to be a large chair with massive arms that resembled the gloves he wore, along with a set of struts on the underside to act as legs. It was primarily yellow with black caution strips on it, and it also seemed to have missile pods on the arms, shoulders. Oh my gosh, Mr. Power Loader, this is way too perfect. I probably should have guessed that you were a fan of aliens, too." Power Loader cleared his throat, feeling a bit sheepish at being called out. "Ahem, well, I will say that it served as great inspiration for me, certainly. I wouldn't call myself as big of a fan as you, but I will say it's a pretty fitting for us to be on the same team." He set his sights onto Bulkhead and jerked a thumb toward his machine. "Think you can carry my rig to the battle, Bulkhead? I'd really appreciate it." "Oh, sure. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK." Bulkhead transformed into his Hummer truck mode and backed up to the loader, opening his tailgate for it. "Just heft it on up there and I'll get it where it needs to be." "Woohoo. Alright." Mina pumped both fists into the air. "Team Aliens, for the win." The iron-clawed hero had to hold back a tired sigh. "Great, now I'm dealing with another hyper-pink-haired teenager. Am I cursed or something?" All Might and Strongarm assisted in loading the device into Bulkhead's truck bed. Optimus went over to the final team. "Sunstreaker, Chargebolt, I'm certain I don't have to tell you that we're gonna be the most badass team out on the battlefield." Denki guessed as both he and Sunstreaker pointed finger guns at one another. "Because trust me, Optimus, we do already know that." "Haha, yes." Sunstreaker cheered. "With all of that hard work we put in to help focus your quirk, I'm sure we'll end up kicking the most con skid plate." Sunny and Denki brought their fists together and gave a simultaneous boosh, which Kyoka couldn't help but facepalm at. Optimus, however, only raised a metal brow at them. I was going to say that I don't have to tell you that, by process of elimination, you're assigned UA. Teacher will be Mr. Vlad King. The Prime pointed behind the duo and they turned around, where Denki was met with the homeroom teacher of Class 1B himself. The man had his large, muscly arms crossed over his broad chest, his unyielding glare shooting holes directly into Denki's soul. His pointed teeth and blood-red hero costume didn't help in making him less intimidating either. Quite the opposite, in fact, he was an absolute beast. Hiya! Sunstreaker waved while Denki cowered before the man. HMPH, alright, listen up. Immediately, both Denki and Sunstreaker straightened up at Vlad's command, the blood hero pacing right in front of them. You may not be part of MY class, Mr. Kaminari, but rest assured that I'm going to be showing the same hospitality to you as I do them. No special treatment, no matter how, all that, you think you are. He poked and prodded Denki's chest to make sure he got the point across. I want you to follow my orders too. The letter. Is that clear, son? See crystal, sir. Denki acknowledged. Good. Vlad's sights went up to Sunstreaker, making him flinch. And you, I expect neither you or Kaminari to let your egos get in the way of this mission. This is a rescue operation, not a machismo contest. Sunstreaker was left nearly speechless at that. Man, this guy is intense. Still, he knew that this mission was important, and as the more mature sibling between him and Sideswipe, he had to take responsibility. Ahem, of course, Mr. Vlad. I'll make sure that both you and Denki stay safe. The white-haired man nodded once again. Excellent. Now, with all the teams formed up, I think it's time we started heading out. I could not agree more, sir. Optimus concurred. Red alert, the ground bridge, if you would. Red promptly headed over to the ground bridge terminal and entered the coordinates for their destination, pulling on the lever to activate the vortex. Just so you're aware, I've programmed this ground bridge to open up about a mile or so out from Shadow Striker's destination. Hopefully that will give you all enough room to not be seen coming by the cons. Thank you, old friend. Be ready to open the portal when we've rescued Bumblebee and Midnight. Red Alert saluted to his leader before Optimus faced the collected team of Autobots, heroes and students one final time. Now, remember, tonight, we are a unit working toward a common goal, to save our friends. Several of us have worked with one another before, others have not, but so long as we remember what keeps us united, I have faith that we will succeed. So, let us wait no longer. Autobots, transform, WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK. The 9 Autobots all transformed and opened up for their human allies to climb in, and with that, Optimus finished his command, and roll out. Back on the dark side, meanwhile, Starscream was reclining in his seat with a most satisfied smile, taking time to relish his victory. Finally, a plan had actually worked in his favor. He had not one, but 2 hostages and the Autobots were at his mercy. Between that and the new mini-con recruits proving their worth off the bat, this was a good day indeed. Oh, Swift, have I ever told you how fun it is to not be on the losing side? Only for the past hour and a half. Swift muttered, sarcastically rolling her optics. Speaking of, aren't we close to that ultimatum deadline? Indeed, but we must wait for the new probe to finish before launching it. The helicopter bot sighed and placed her hand over her optics. Those Autobots, I swear. Don't they know how long it takes to make one of those? Oh, relax, Swift, it barely takes any time at all. Says the guy who sat on his aft while flatline and I worked on it. Swift snarled. Starscream pursed his lips and tapped his fingers awkwardly. Oh, yes, fair point. But still, don't worry, I'm sure the new probe will be finished before long. Starscream put a finger to his chin, thinking over everything he should do to prepare for his ultimate victory. I should probably check in with Thundercracker on the prisoner's status. He reached over and activated the comms to the holding cells. Brother, how goes the GYAAAAAAAOOOOOON? Mother of, ow. Starscream was so startled by the sudden loud roar that he felt straight out of his chair, hitting his head on the table on the way down. Swift burst out laughing and pointed at Starscream as he scrambled up, his features twisted in rage. Thundercracker, what in the frag was that? What is the status of our prisoners, Thundercracker? Is this thing even on? In the cells themselves, Thundercracker was entranced by the black and white moving pictures before him, as were the mini-cons. They were watching a movie that Midnight had suggested, one that the three cons were utterly fascinated by. So you're telling me that this Gojira isn't just a guy in a suit, but an allegory for the dangers of nuclear weapons? Thundercracker asked. Indeed, Midnight affirmed, her and B still hanging in midair from their shackles. It's a very powerful movie, even if the special effects are quite dated. Usually for more modern Gojira movies, the kaiju hero, Godzilla, does all the stunt work. She glanced over to Bumblebee briefly. You'd be floored by how big of a green screen he needs. Interesting. Thundercracker watched as the massive beast lifted his head and roared over the charred remains of Tokyo, before it then marched right into the sea. And to think something like this came about because of a war, all we had on Cybertron was propagandist garbage. Sounds awful. Midnight agreed. A film like this is way better, right? An important message, a dark atmosphere, and still very entertaining. Funny how an almost 300-year-old movie can be like that. Well, Beast. All of a sudden, the entire room started flashing red as an alarm blared throughout the entire ship, taking them all by surprise. What on Cybertron? Midnight's head shot up in concern. What's going on? Runway, Jetstorm and Sonar all stood at attention. It's the security alarm, the leader of the aerial assault team explained. Either we're under attack, or something's coming, and I bet we can all take an accurate guess on what. Thundercracker let out a disappointed sigh. He was just starting to enjoy that movie, too. Autobots. It seems your allies have somehow found us. He looked straight at Midnight as he made his conclusion. If I had to guess, I'd say they're coming to rescue you too. So will you fight back against them? Midnight asked. It's my duty. Thundercracker confirmed. I apologize, Midnight. There is no honor in what we did to bring you here, but as a Decepticon soldier, I must do as I am ordered. He shifted his gaze toward his mini-con squad with a nod. Come, we have to be ready to engage the enemy. And with that, the four of them were off, leaving Midnight and Bumblebee to themselves, but not before Thundercracker glanced back at her one final time. I'm sorry. With his departure, Midnight sighed to herself, partially upset to hear that. So am I. Whatever. Starscream dismissed, giving up on contacting his brother as he got up from his chair. I'll just go check on them myself, Beast. Oh, what now? Without warning, Nitra appeared in front of him, darting straight for the control panel as he shouted in surprise. Proximity alarm, the hacker said as she typed away. We've got intruders approaching from about half a mile out, and, ay Dios mío, that's, how did they even? Starscream shot up and got right in her face. Nitra, what is going on? It's the Autobots. Nitra stepped aside, showing Starscream and Swift that there were indeed several Autobot signals approaching their position, and fast. They've found us. I don't know how, but they did. That's impossible. Starscream snarled, rushing up to the screen in rage. We've been out of range from their scanners for weeks and not once did they find us. How are they only now just? I may have an answer to that. Everyone spun around as Shadow Striker and, surprisingly, Unicronus walked into the room. The former wore a disgusted sneer as she brought her hand up, holding a teeny-tiny device between her fingers. I found Z's after Flatline checked up on me following our mission. It is emitting a strong signal on a special frequency, so I can only guess. You got sloppy. Starscream snapped, taking Shadow Striker off guard as he grit his teeth and stormed up to her. In your pursuit of revenge, you neglected to pay attention and one of them got attacker on you. Do you have any idea to what lengths I've gone to keep this location a secret? I should. Enough. Unicronus bellowed, taking Starscream by the arm very roughly. Starscream, I don't know if you've noticed, but we have bigger things to worry about than playing the blame game. The Autobots are coming here, and that means we need every asset we have on defending our ship and keeping the prisoners locked up tight. He craned his head over to Swift. Lieutenant, I want you out on the front lines with Skywarp, Barricade, Flatline and Blastwave. A battalion of Viacons should be waiting for you in the loading bay, understand? Without hesitation, Swift saluted to him. Yes, sir. Understood. She made for the door soon after, shooting Starscream a knowing glance as she left. Might wanna keep your head on for this one, Screamer. Something tells me it's gonna get nasty. Starscream merely grumbled as she left, all while Unicronus went on, alright, Nitra, it's best if you and I stay in the command center and coordinate things from here. Starscream, you and Shadow Striker will meet up with Thundercracker and do not give ME orders, Unicronus. Starscream shouted, pointing at the tactician chest. Remember, we are Colorado commanders on this mission, so I am allowed to make my own decisions in this situation, thank you very much. Unicronus folded his arms expectantly. Alright then, what will you do then? Well, Starscream had to admit, if Unicronus didn't have a point, he probably would argue against his logic. But still, very well, I will head down to the prison cells, but only so I can keep an optic on Shadow Striker. Not because you told me to. He sent a brief glare at the assassin, one which she didn't hesitate to return. I have to make sure she doesn't bungle something up again, after all. I will cut out your audio processor for that. Shadow Striker retorted. Starscream got right in her face, raising one of his null rays. I'd like to see you try. Unicronus growled and pinched his nasal ridge, his temper beginning to rise. Would you two just go already? The Decepticons grumbled at him in return before heading off to their positions, leaving him and Nitra to monitor the situation from the bridge. Unicronus glared at the approaching Autobot signals through his red visor, having no doubt that a certain commander was likely with them. So, Optimus Prime, let's see if you're rusty after all this time. Woohoo. While the subject of their mission was of the utmost seriousness, Momo couldn't help but feel so exhilarated as she flew through the air inside of Windblade. The two had grown to be good friends over the course of their time training together, but Momo had never gotten to fly in the city speaker's jet mode before, so to say she was excited was an understatement. Haha, I can't believe I'm in here without a flight suit. This is amazing. You can thank the special sealant on my canopy for that. Windblade explained. Helps regulate the G-forces. She lowered herself down so that she was flying over her commander, getting as close as she could without clipping the treetops. We're almost there, Optimus. Just a few more clicks through these woods. I didn't think there'd be so many trees here, honestly. Yes, I believe that Canada is mostly wilderness, really. Smintos said through the comms. This could prove a bit difficult for me, though, considering I require a fair amount of cement to effectively use my quirk. Denki's voice suddenly piped up too. Well, let's just hope we don't get lost in these woods. It's a wonder how people live up here with all of the moose. Hey, no kidding, man. Eijiro chuckled. I mean, I know we've got stuff in Japan that's hard to live with, but those things are huge. No, moose. Denki shouted. On our right. Everyone's heads collectively snapped in that direction, and they were greeted with the sight of several charging bull moose coming their way. Sunstreaker put on the brakes and let the charging herd miss him entirely, which several other Autobots quickly followed an example. Unfortunately, this didn't stop the moose from kicking up dirt from their hooves, which landed on Sunstreaker's hood. No. Come on, not now. Sideswipe, however, was much more focused on the large animals. Sweet Solus Prime. Those things are the size of a pickup truck. Optimus hummed to himself curiously. Strange, what reason would they have to run us down? Perhaps we are trespassing on their territory. Doubtful. Izuku denied. Moose don't really have one set territory. It kind of moves along with them. He then watched as several female moose also came running through, with plenty of calves coming along with them. If I had to guess, something might have spooked them. All Might folded his arms at that. Not many animals in North America can intimidate a herd of moose like that. So, if I had to guess. Decepticons. Springer assumed, rolling up to Prime in his armored car mode. Something tells me we might have popped up on their radar already and they're scrambling their forces. What do you want us to do, Commander? We maintain the initial plan. But first, Optimus activated his comm to contact the base. Red, erase your head, maneuver the Sky Spy ahead and give us an estimation of number of Decepticons we'll be dealing with. Everyone sat back and watched as the Sky Spy suddenly blasted off into the forest, maneuvering around trees and other such obstacles as if it was no problem at all. After a few minutes, Red Alert's voice rang through the comms. You'll definitely be met with resistance, Optimus. By my count, there are about 30 Viacons, along with Skywarp, Swift, Barricade and Flatline. They're all— wait, no, Blastwave just came out of the ship as well. There was a long pause after that as he delivered some unfortunate news, and he has an X-18 Scrapmaker. There was a long, drawn-out silence after that, but if the Autobots were in robot mode, the humans would have seen that they were stunned to their cores. I take it that's a bad thing. Mina called out. Yeah, very bad. Bulkhead affirmed. You know what a minigun is, right? Mina gave him a nod. Think of an X-18 Scrapmaker as one of those, but even bigger and with 2 rotating barrels. The teachers and students were left speechless, with some even growing pale. Oh God, we're about to die. Denki muttered. I knew I'd regret coming on this mission. Pull it together, kid. Vlad snapped, bringing Denki out of his terror. We're not even at the battle yet. Remember, a hero must be willing to face down any fears that they have if they want to win against any villain. This X-18 Scrapmaker will be an obstacle, yes, but one we'll be able to overcome given the right tactics. And weapons. Bulkhead added. I'll try to draw most of Blastwave's fire. Besides, he's probably gonna want to come after me, anyway. But what about the rest of us? RC asked. We can't get into the ship if all of those cons are guarding the entrance. Optimus, however, was quick to assure her. Worry not, RC, we'll find a way. Red Alert, are there any openings that you can see? Well, not many, though there is a rather large boulder that's planted in the ground near the ship. Vaguely slope-shaped, you can't miss it. The Prime hummed to himself as an idea began to formulate in his mind. I see, Izuku, All Might, you may want to listen closely. I may have a plan that can get us into the base without having to use the entrance at all. At the dark side itself, Barricade stood at the ready, holding Frenzy in his buzzsaw mode as he and the other Decepticons awaited the arrival of the Autobots. If anything, though, Barricade was less excited and more antsy over the situation. Where the pit are they? I thought they'd be here by now. Keep your light bar on, Barry. Swift said with a smirk, her hands lighting up in their signature green glow. Trust me, they'll show. They're Autobots, so they're not about to just not follow through with an insane plan like this if it means saving their precious friends. Flatline huffed at the prospect. HMPH, quite the programming flaw across them all, I will say that. Their collective sense of justice proves time and again to be more of a hindrance to them than anything. Bah, too much talking. Blastwave bellowed, hefting up the X-18 Scrapmaker that was built right into his arm. Action must start now. Destruction needs food for her pointy bullet teeth. Skywarp sighed and shook his head. I can't believe he gave that thing a name. But then, right at that moment, the sound of car engines reached his audio receptors, bringing the purple and black seeker's attention back to the woods. Sure enough, through the trees and underbrush, he could see the Autobots barreling through straight at them. Oh, Scrap. Look alive, people. He lowered his skull-like battle mask and took out his shotguns, pointing them at their enemies. The enemy is within sight. Fire at will. Finally. Blastwave raised his massive gun at them and smirked victoriously. Say hello to Destructia, cowards. We are unstoppable force of nature and machinery. Now, die cowards. Both barrels started spinning rapidly, and then, rat-a-tat-a-tat-a-tat-a-tat. The X-18 began unloading every round it had against the Autobots, and Blastwave was having the time of his life. Zeet. Ararararagahaha. Zeet. Oh ho ho ho. Autobots, evasive maneuvers. At Prime's orders, all 9 Autobots began to bob and weave their way through the oncoming Hail Mary of bullets and blasts, in some cases, only just barely managing to do so. Inside their cabs, every human held on for dear life as the bots swerved around the place, though they knew that getting hit with any one of those bullets would be much worse. Everyone, engage the enemy. No need to tell me twice. Power Loader exclaimed as he opened the driver's side window. Alien Queen, meet me out there when you can, alright. Until then, stay close to Bulkhead. Mina was caught off guard by that. But what are you gonna do? Power Loader smiled and gave her a thumbs up. I'm gonna give us a tactical advantage. He climbed out of Bulkhead's window and got to the top of the Hummer, only to immediately jump into his own power loader. He connected the back of his helmet to a special cable above his chair and the device powered on, allowing him to jump out of the bed and then start burrowing the moment he hit the dirt. Wait, what? One of the Viacons exclaimed. Where did he? Whoa. One by one, several Viacons began falling in holes that opened up beneath their feet. The process was almost instantaneous, leaving the Viacons up to their necks in dirt and rock. Whoa, did Power Loader just do that? Bulkhead said in awe. Alien Queen gave a small chuckle at that. HM, pretty sure he did. Way to help give us a small advantage, Mr. Power Loader. Meanwhile, Windblade was flying through the air while focusing her own fire on even more Viacons. Granted, some of the maneuvers she was pulling off were making Momo slightly sick, but it beat the alternative. The same could be said for Springer, who had suddenly transformed into his copter mode to take to the skies. Sorry, Snipe, but we've had to leave the ground for a while, he apologized. HA, you kiddin'? Snipe laughed. That was probably the greatest thing ever. Springer's interest was piqued at that. Really? Well then, maybe you'd like to take the reins on the weapons. He shifted his controls around in his cockpit, allowing Snipe a shot at the lever. Come on, let's see if you're as much of a crackshot as you say you are. Beneath his gas mask, Snipe was grinning like an idiot at this point. Woohoo! Glad to hear it, my good man. Let's do this. The moment he grabbed the control lever, Snipe was bombarded by the sight of many targets, leading him to take aim and fire from Springer's weapons. Haha, now this is how ya make an entrance. Snipe cheered as he kept mowing down Viacons. As they kept going, though, Springer noticed something odd. Namely, all of the shots from his guns were actually pursuing their targets, much to his shock. Wait, how are those plasma shots following the cons? Hey, you can thank my quirk for that. Snipe chuckled. I call it homing. Any target in my sights that I shoot at is instantly locked on by any projectile I fire. Bullets, lasers, you name it, it hits. Ha, no kidding. Springer laughed. Snipe, my man, you're definitely okay in my book. The wrecker lowered himself down toward Optimus and called out, Commander, you find our point of entry yet? Dead ahead, Springer. Optimus announced, which proved to be quite true. Just ahead of them was a massive boulder that was in the shape of a slope, and it just so happened to be pointed directly at the side of the ship. RC and Windblade grouped up with the two as they closed in on their target. Now, we're all clear on how we're to enter, correct? Sure are, Optimus. All Might sounded off as he crouched on his seat, with Izuku following his lead. And we're ready when you are. The Greenette powered full cowling up to 5%, readying himself for what came next. Just say the word. Optimus made a beeline for the sloping boulder, his infiltration team directly behind him. Alright, let's do it, maximum overdrive. All of a sudden, the semi-truck got a huge burst of speed, with Prime flooring it all the way up the sloping stone. And then, with a final burst of speed, he launched off the very end. Now. And just like that, Prime's windshields burst open, allowing Izuku and All Might to launch themselves out at the ship. They reeled their fists back as their power flowed through them, getting ready for a combined attack. Double. Detroit. SMAAAAAASHH. The All-for-One users simultaneously thrust their fists forward and bashed through the side of the dark side, puncturing a massive hole through the hull. The Mentor and Protégé landed on the metal floor inside and immediately darted out of the way, allowing Optimus and RC to come to a landing as well. Springer and Windblade followed suit and their human companions disembarked, allowing them all to transform. Ha, phew. Izuku breathed in, smiling to the others. Everyone in one piece. Ochako wore a determined grin and gave him a thumbs up. Yeah, we're all good, Deku. Great job. Momo took a deep breath, her exhilaration still through the roof from flying so fast. Yes, I think we're all fine. It was then, however, that she remembered a small detail from earlier, and an idea struck her. Oh, wait, before we go any further, Momo started typing into her new database and her visor activated, showing her the formula for what she wanted to create. Okay, simple enough. Everyone, if you would please turn away for a moment. Oh, Sure, Momo. Windblade obliged, with the rest of the group doing as the creation user asked. Alright, here I go. Momo unzipped her top and held it open briefly as she started creating some massive objects, though what they were, the others didn't know. She made about 6 before zipping her top back up and giving them the okay. Okay, you're good. When the others faced back to her, they found that Momo had actually made 6 massive blocks of cement. They were tall enough to reach her knees and were about as long as herself, which explained why she seemed exhausted all of a sudden. She set a hand on the blocks and looked to the number 1 hero and his protege. All Might, Deku, would you mind tossing these down to Mr. Smentos? He'll be needing them. All Might brightened up at how considerate the young heroine had been. Ha ha ha, how thoughtful of you, Kriti. Remembering what he said back there in the woods was quite clever. He and Izuku hefted the blocks over their shoulders, though All Might took the brunt of them with 4. I'm sure that he'll appreciate this greatly. As the duo went to throw the blocks down through the hole, Optimus reached up to his comlink and contacted his lieutenant. Jazz, we've successfully entered the dark side. Be sure to keep the comms open in case anything happens. You got it, Prime. Jazz acknowledged. We'll handle things down here. You guys just get after being midnight double time, ya dig? Good luck, guys. Kyoka added. We'll keep you all posted on things out here. Excellent. Prime out. Optimus went back to his team as Izuku and All Might returned, with all of them seeming ready to take on the next challenge. Alright, now that we're inside the ship, our priority is finding the prison cells. Springer, lead the way. The wrecker saluted before making a beeline down the hall. Understood, Commander. Come on, this way. The 3 Autobots and 6 humans all started after him, with All Might, 13 and Snipe bringing up the rear in case they got ambushed from behind. The ship almost seemed to get darker and darker the further they went in, and it didn't help that the only lighting in the halls was an eerie purple. However, Springer definitely knew where they were going, so they kept up with him fairly well. Okay, the cells should be 1 elevator away. Whoa. Springer skid to a halt, causing the others to do so as well. Springer, why are we, oh. RC quickly saw why they had stopped, and she didn't like what it was. In front of them was a small battalion of about 15 Viacons, and leading them were Starscream, Thundercracker, the aerial assault mini-cons, and Shadow Striker. RC glared at her foe with righteous fury, balling her fists to try to keep herself under control. Of course. It can never be that easy, can it? Tisk, 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 I am afraid not, RC. Shadow Striker shook her head. It is a shame that you all went through so much trouble to find us here, but all the same, the assassin narrowed her optic at the Autobots and raised her rifle at them. None of you shall not be leaving here alive. Starscream came forward himself, sending a piercing glare toward Optimus. I must admit, Prime, I didn't expect this move after your last tracking attempt failed so miserably. He glanced down toward the heroes and students, sneering at them in disgust. But given how small the tracker was, I can only assume that it was placed by one of your human allies. Guilty as charged, Momo admitted. Now let Bumblebee and Midnight go. HMPH, by my count, girl, you are in no position to be giving orders to ME. The Seeker spread his arms out, gesturing toward his Viacon forces. After all, it is I who has the superior numbers. Between us, my Viacons and the Mini-Cons, we outnumber you by quite a large margin. PSH, oh yeah. Springer challenged as he deployed Fangblade and Saberback, the 2 Mini-Cons growling at their adversaries. Well, you're not the only one who's brought backup. If anything, though, this just made Jetstorm laugh. Bah, deployer Mini-Cons, really? Like they could hold a candle to us. Sonar slammed a fist into his hand, ready to engage the enemy. I say we take care of that mangy mutt and crazy cat. I couldn't agree more. Runway approved, craning her head up toward Thundercracker. Sir, I think it's time we showed them our true power. Those words certainly didn't sit well with the group, especially the humans. What is she talking about? 13 asked, keeping her guard up against anything that could happen. Don't know. Snipe took out his gun while the others all took defensive positions. But I bet it ain't all that good. Thundercracker sighed a bit, a frustrated feeling growing inside himself. As hesitant as he was, however, he knew that he had a job to do. Right. Sonar, Runway, Jetstorm, form up on me. At his word, the 3 mini-cons all transformed into their vehicle modes and flew up into the air, all while Thundercracker kept his hand raised. Just then, Sonar's front end extended and split in half, almost as if he were transforming back into robot mode. However, the gun on top of his jet mode suddenly swung down, becoming a sort of handle. From there, Jetstorm's entire front end flipped up onto the back of his jet mode, revealing a connection port. And surprisingly, his front end slotted into the barrel of Sonar's gun, and the heroes were left utterly confused as the 2 aircraft connected in a way that didn't make sense. At least, not until Runway entered the scene. She flew in backwards into Ransack so that her rear thrusters plugged into his, and it was then that the group of Autobots and humans finally recognized the shape of what the mini-cons had combined into. This was only furthered when Jetstorm and Runway were enveloped in a bright yet eerie yellow light, which formed the energy blade of the aerial assault team's combined sword form. Thundercracker caught the blade and held it up on high, his expression stoic and serious as he presented his new weapon to the heroes. Autobots, humans, behold, the Cyber Caliber. Take a good, long look, because it will be your doom. Chapter 22, Waging Battle. From the moment the Autobots charged in, the area around the dark side had been turned into an absolute war zone. Gunfire could be heard ringing throughout the forest as bullets peppered the ground and trees, leaving anything they hit upturned or splintered. Or in Blastwave's case, utterly leveled. The largest Decepticon definitely packed the biggest weapon he could find, because this double-barreled minigun just did not stop going. Even the weapon's reload time was super quick, so the Autobots had a very narrow window to fire back on the Decepticon bruiser. WAAAAH. WAAAAH. Ahahaha. Blastwave taunted. Yes, cry some more, cowards. Thus, the Autobots were left with but one tactic: run, or in this case, drive, and gun. They'd had barely any time to transform with Blastwave firing upon them, so they had to deal with it on the fly. Many of the faster bots like Sideswipe and Sunstreaker had activated their vehicle-mounted blasters to try and take out as many Vehicons as they could to clear the area, just so they'd have more room to maneuver around this onslaught of firepower. At one point, though, Sideswipe ended up driving over a large stone, sending him up and back down quickly while rattling his passengers. "Ah, Sideswipe, watch where you're going," Ajiro chided. "The point of avoiding all these bullets is kinda moot if we die in a crash." I know, Sideswipe countered. "Sorry, but it's kinda hard to look out for speed bumps when you've got 1,000 things coming at you all at once." Smintos furrowed his blocky brow, thinking of a potential plan. We need something to stop his fire for good. Something to cut him off and give us time to regroup. His eyes darted back and forth, gazing through the windshield at potential things they could use to assist. Prime and his team had already gone up the sloped boulder and crashed into the dark side, just as planned, so they wouldn't be getting any help there. Or were they? In the ship's new hole, Smintos caught sight of All Might and Deku coming back out, and they were carrying something on their shoulders. The hero narrowed his eyes curiously, only to realize what those were a second later. "Sideswipe, quick, get over under the hole in the ship. All Might and Deku have something for us." Alright, if you say so. Hang on." With a rev of his engine, Sideswipe's tires screeched across the ground as he swerved toward the ship, going as fast as he could to avoid the incoming fire. "Sunstreaker, give me some cover. I need to get closer to the ship." "Bro, are you mad? Smintos has a plan, just trust me." The yellow Lambo brother was somewhat skeptical, but obliged anyway. Just don't die on me, bro. I'm coming in." From behind Blastwave, Sunstreaker came zooming in, though the large Decepticon was too focused to really notice. But then, the con's medic had to blow that surprise. "Blastwave, mine camarade." Flatline pointed. "Behind you." Thank you, Doctor." Blastwave immediately stopped his fire and instead spun right around on his foot, raising it just as Sunstreaker came within 5 feet of himself. "Die, puny baby bot." Emergency ejection. Sunstreaker opened his doors and launched both Denki and Vlad out of their seats, sending them both sprawling away while he transformed to catch Blastwave's foot. He quickly took out his photon blaster and aimed right for the con's face. "Eat this, Decepti creep." Bam, bam. EA-ARRRGH. Blastwave stumbled back, his hand to his chest as his mesh was singed by the blasts. He snarled in contempt to the Autobot and raised his scrapmaker again. That was very poor choice, Autobot. Now, die, AAAAAAUUUUGHGHBLBLBL. All of a sudden, a huge surge of lightning was sent coursing through Blastwave's entire body, causing him a great deal of pain and sending him straight down onto his aft. Sunstraker's jaw dropped the moment he saw Denki standing by Blastwave's foot, the bruiser now covered in burn marks as his head spun. "You okay, partner?" Denki winked with a thumbs up. Sunstreaker sighed and smiled down to him. "Yeah, thanks Denki. I think the Earth expression is, thanks for saving my swine." The electrification user cringed a bit at that. "Well, it's actually, saving your bacon, but hey, you were close." "We're not done yet." Vlad King spoke up, the blood hero glaring up as Flatline approached the group. "Keep on your guard." But Sunstreaker rolled his optics, shaking his head as Flatline stopped in front of the charred Blastwave. "Please, what's the medic gonna do? Take us to his med bay and repair us." Flatline chose to ignore the whelp for now as he knelt down, inspecting Blastwave's wounds in his disorientated state. Doctor, what happened?" "Worry not, mein Freund. You have sustained minimal damage." "Und believe me." Flatline rose up and reached behind his back, revealing that he was wearing some sort of power pack. It had some sort of gun attached to it, with a hose connecting the butt end of it to the pack in order to power it. The gun itself was very cylindrical in shape and had a red and black color scheme, and the pack seemed to glow brighter once Flatline flipped the activation switch on the gun. "You shall be feeling much better soon enough." Flatline held the weapon by its hand with his right hand while grabbing onto a large lever on top of it with his left. The moment he thrust that lever forward, a beam of red light suddenly came surging out of the barrel and directly hit Blastwave in the chest, and what came next stunned the Autobot and the two humans. Blastwave's burn marks and injuries all started to heal, the energy from the gun spreading throughout his entire body to quickly heal himself. Within moments, Blastwave slowly got back to his feet, feeling refreshed and ready to keep going. Much better." "What?" Denki's hands flew up to his head in disbelief. But I zapped you into next week." Blastwave glowered down and brought up his scrapmaker again, taking aim. 7 days has come early, tiny baby man. And why do you keep calling people babies? Seriously, it's getting, scrap. Denki felt his gut sink to his feet as the scrapmaker's barrel started spinning. And before he knew it, rat-a-tat-a-tat-a-tat. Wait, what? Much to Denki's surprise, he wasn't Swiss cheese at the moment, and he quickly figured out why. A huge wall of cement had been put up in front of him, taking him by surprise. Whoa, what the? Don't worry, Chargebolt. The electric blonde whipped his head around to see Smintos standing not too far away, the cement hero's hands glowing a bright green as he manipulated the cement to his bidding. "We've got you covered." He balled a fist and thrust it forward, causing a portion of the cement to come out and sock Blastwave right in the knee. Gah! Blastwave fell to one knee, and was immediately met with a pair of powerful punches. One came from a hardened fist, while the other came from a fist made of blood. Ow! Vlad King and Ajiro landed in a crouch, one of his arms completely covered in his own, malleable blood as he used his quirk to control it. "Mess with my charge, will you? Well, not today, you damned menace." He whipped around and furrowed his brow at Denki. "And as for you." The teen flinched and backed up, only for Vlad to raise a brow. "You good? Everything in one piece?" Denki was surprised, to say the least. Why yeah, I guess. Good, because that had to be the dumbest stunt I've ever seen." Vlad went up and jabbed Denki in the chest with his blood finger, making sure he got the message. "What you did was foolhardy and reckless. When someone's pointing a weapon at you, you move, not stand there and stare like a dead fish." "Gotta admit, dude, he's got a point." Ajiro shrugged. Well, I panicked, okay. If anything, Vlad just glared at Denki even harder. "Unacceptable. I don't know what Aizawa's been teaching you in that class of yours, but the very first thing I taught my 1B students is about how to deal with the pressure of battle." He balled his bloody fist up as he spoke with conviction. "Of course you'll have to deal with petrifying situations, but a hero thinks on their feet and stands firm in the face of danger." You'd think you had learned that after the USJ attack. Hey, oh god. Denki snapped his finger up and screamed, behind you. Vlad spun around just in time to see Blastwave get up, the massive Decepticon gritting his metal teeth in anger. Grr, you will pay for that, you, huh. As Blastwave got up, though, he was met with a pair of guns in his face, courtesy of Sideswipe and Sunstreaker. The red bot smirked and said, hey. We're here to collect our payback. Sunstreaker added, right before both of them socked Blastwave in the head. The force of the attack sent the massive Decepticon staggering back, right as a certain green bot was driving past. Yo, Bulk, you want this one? Gladly. Bulkhead opened his door and let Mina out before transforming into robot mode, catching Blastwave and putting him into an upside-down headlock. This is for Crystal City, you piece of slag. The wrecker kicked Blastwave's legs out from under him and fell backward, leaving the Decepticon with nowhere else to go, but right onto the new cement floor below him. Wham! The hard floor cracked as Blastwave's body went limp, and Bulkhead chuckled to himself as he stood. Hey, so much for pew. Ow. Hey. A small laser blast had hit Bulkhead's shoulder, and the culprit wasn't too hard to figure out. HMPH, you Autobots certainly are persistent, aren't you? Flatline said as he holstered his sidearm, glaring at the three bots and their companions. Well, perhaps I should see what I can do with you. They could always use spare parts, and I would be happy to have some new test subjects, HM. I don't like the way he looked at us when he said that. Mina piped up. Flatline reached into his holster and pulled out a red energy blade, a manic air behind his optics. Now hold still, Z's won't take but a minute. FWOOM. Without any warning, the ground beneath Flatline's feet suddenly gave out, and just like several Viacons before him, he sank down deep into the dirt. ACH. What is Z's? Blastwave came to at that moment and he gasped at the sight. Ah, Doctor. Schnell. Blastwave, help me. The Decepticon bruiser was about to oblige, when suddenly, Power Loader came bursting out of the earth beneath his feet, sending the massive robot tumbling over. Ah. Neen, nay, pang, and straight onto Flatline's head. Ow, Schweinhunds, just like that, Flatline was out like a light. Ha, yeah, and you stay down. Power Loader breathed heavily, covered in dirt and grime from his relatively short time underground. The support class teacher turned toward the others and asked, everyone all good? Mina saluted to him immediately. Yes sir, Mr. Power Loader. Thanks for the save, ah. But then, the acid user gasped and pointed behind him. Watch out, more incoming. Everyone whipped their heads up to see several Viacons coming toward them, their weapons out and at the ready. And leading the way was none other than Barricade. There they are, open fire. Barricade ordered before all of them stopped and started shooting. But, like before, their laser blasts only made contact with a wall of hardened cement, courtesy of Smentos. What the, hey? The teachers, students and Autobots all grouped up behind the cement wall, the bots themselves pulling out their own weapons to take aim and fire back at the Viacons. As laser blasts rang out through the whole area, the humans grouped up to form some semblance of a plan. Okay, we're pinned between a bunch of Viacons, the Khan's ship, and a hard place sandwiched right with us. Speaking of, Denki raised an eyebrow at Smentos. Where the heck did you get the cement? Smentos chuckled and explained. Well, Kriti was thoughtful enough to make a few blocks for me to use. And I'm very glad she did, otherwise you might not be here right now. Ajiro balled his fist, hardening his arms in frustration. Damn it, we can't just stay here. We need to find a way to get to those cons so we can fight. Agreed. Vlad nodded as he thought over their options. If any of them got hit by one of those blasts, they could be incapacitated, or worse. Thankfully, an idea came to him almost immediately. Power Loader, think you can get some of us over there by underground? We'll be able to take him by surprise from behind. Well, this baby doesn't exactly take passengers, but I think I can take a couple of the kids over. Power Loader craned his head over to Mina and Ajiro. Alright, Alien Queen, Red Riot, climb aboard. The duo followed his orders to the letter, but Denki couldn't help but be confused all the same. Wait, hold on, what about me? I've still got enough juice to take down a lot of those guys. Smintos gave him a reassuring pat on the back. Don't worry, Chargebolt, I think I have a special plan of attack for you in mind. For now, though, let's get this started. Good to hear, Sideswipe called back, because right now, we're not looking too good. The cons just set up a force field barrier. Bulkhead explained, pointing across the way. A few of the humans peeked out from behind the wall to see that indeed, there was a tall, purple barrier set up in front of the cons, and while they could fire through it, any shots the Autobots took just deflected right off. If we wanna get to him, we gotta take that barrier out. Mina grinned wildly and slammed her fist into her palm. Alright, Operation Sneak Attack is a go. Let's get diggin', Mr. Power Loader. Alright, hold on. With that warning, the kids clung to the struts of Power Loader's suit as he started digging down through the dirt, all while making sure they held their breath. The Autobots and heroes could feel the earth beneath their feet rumble, but only for a moment as Power Loader dug deeper down, making sure the small tremors wouldn't be felt by the cons. Before long, he changed direction and crossed enemy lines, before making his way right back up. Eventually, the small tremors came back, and one of the Viacons gasped in fear. No, not Aga, Ain. BWOOM. And just like that, a sinkhole opened up beneath the foot soldier's feet, sending him down into the deep ground below. Ah, what the, blam. Barricade was cut off when Power Loader suddenly erupted from the ground, causing several of his squad to be sent tumbling while Mina and Ajiro launched themselves at the hapless Viacons. Hiya, Barry. Mina swiped her hand and sent splashes of acid across many Viacons' faces, sending them down screaming in pain. Ya remember us. Ajiro slammed into one con's chest and took it down with ease before jumping at another, clawing at its leg with his hardened fingertips. Come on, ya know ya do. The redhead quickly climbed his way up the Viacon, all while it tried to shake him off, but to no avail. He finally made it up to its head and started pummeling it, causing it to trip into even more Viacons that he continued to engage as well. No, 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 no. Barricade hollered, stomping his foot in anger. This is not how it's supposed to go. You're organic. You aren't supposed to be able to fight back. He reached behind his back and pulled out his partner. Frenzy. Teach these humans a lesson they'll never forget. Clang. Ouch. Barricade was sent sprawling after a surprise punch from Sideswipe, with Frenzy hitting the ground and transforming out of shock. Boss. He grit his teeth and the buzzsaw in his chest started spinning, his anger growing by the second. You lousy bulk. I'll show you not to mess with us. He pulled his hand back and brought out his shock prod, only for someone to grab him by that arm. Huh, who dares? Ah, come on man. Denki smirked, his hand starting to spark as well. Don't tell me you've never shaken hands before. Here, let me show you what the buzz is about. ZZZZZZZZZZZTTT. Ah agag. Frenzy screamed painfully, already seeing stars as the electricity coursed through his systems. Then, with a surprisingly strong swing, Denki threw the mini-con over his shoulder and slammed him into the dirt, which subsequently allowed Vlad and Sunstreaker to deal the finishing blows. One hard punch and a stomp later, and Fresney was down for the count. Woo. Haha, now that was a pretty great team attack. Sunstreaker brushed his shoulder off and chortled at their handiwork. Ah, what did ya expect, my friend? You and I both knew we'd kick Major Skid Plate, and look at us. We, shink. URK. Ow. All at once, Denki's eyes widened and his jaw fell open, his blood draining from his face. It happened all too fast, but for him and his friends, it almost felt like it was in slow motion. To everyone's surprise, Blastwave had gotten up, and the Decepticon Bruiser had used his sharp fingers to stab Sunstreaker in the back, creating a huge, gaping wound in the warrior's back. Energon started leaking from it in his mouth as he fell forward, landing flat on his chest. Ahahaha. Blastwave guffawed, balling a fistful of Sunstreaker's own Energon. Oh, that felt good. Puny Autobot baby never saw it coming. Bahaha. Mina and Ajiro were horrified while the teachers were just plain stunned. None of them could believe what they had just seen happen. Slowly but surely, Bulkhead's features twisted in rage, his body trembling before he shouted, Blastwa Ave. He charged at the Decepticon with his maces and tackled him to the ground, hitting him repeatedly all while Blastwave just kept laughing. No, Sunstreaker. Sideswipe went to help his brother, but Barricade quickly tackled him down, slamming the butt end of his rifle into Sideswipe's head. "Did you forget who you're dealing with, kid?" Barricade rolled Sideswipe onto his back and started hitting him back as well, though the red Autobot was at least able to fight back. As that went on, though, the heroes and students all gathered up on Sunstreaker, hoping to whatever deity existed that he wasn't dead yet. "Sunstreaker," Mina cried, sliding to a stop right next to his head. "Hey, are you okay? Come on man, speak to us," Ajiro pleaded. Thankfully, they heard a groan from the Autobot, lifting their spirits up a bit. Well, that'll teach me to gloat early, hee hak. Ow. The kid stepped back as Sunstreaker hacked up a bunch of energon, and within moments, he started feeling weaker. "Oh Primus, please tell me this isn't how I go out." "Don't worry, we're going to get you to safety," Vlad assured. "All we need to do is, ZZT. Huh, what's going, oh." The man's confusion was lifted the moment he saw Denki. The young man was trembling as his fists were balled so tight that his knuckles had turned white. His teeth were clenched and he seemed on the verge of tears, though Vlad couldn't tell since the boy's eyes were sparking. "Oh no. Holy shit," Ajiro and Mina exclaimed. Power Loader couldn't help but take a step back, especially when a bolt suddenly surged off of Denki's body. What's happening to Chargebolt? Vlad recognized this, though. It often happened in his early days as a hero, especially in situations like this. The boy's emotions are getting the better of him. Seeing his friend hurt like that must have been the trigger. He whipped his head toward the bots and called out, "Bulkhead. Sideswipe. Tactical retreat. Get Sunstreaker and clear the area." Bulkhead growled and whirled around toward the hero. "You kidding me? Just give me 10 seconds alone with Blastwave and oh." His rage disappeared when he saw Denki, as well as the power building around him. "On second thought, I think I'm gonna do what you say." "Ditto." Sideswipe acknowledged before spinning his legs around to kick Barricade off of him. He shot to his feet and ran over to his brother, with Bulkhead helping to pick him up. "Hold on, bro, we're gonna get you some help." As Sunstreaker was carried off, though, he caught sight of his friend's state. Denki. With that last word, he and the others gathered around as Smintos created a massive cement dome over their heads, helping shield them from whatever may happen. Blastwave and Barricade sat up, rubbing the fog from their processors as they stood. Where did Bulkhead go?" The former demanded, taking up his scrapmaker again. "I will blast him to itty tiny pieces for what he did to him." He trailed off, however, when he saw Denki approaching him, the blonde practically covered in lightning at this point. What is wrong with Tiny Human? You. Denki snapped his head up to Blastwave, his features contorted in righteous fury. "You hurt my friend." Scrap. Barricade rushed off and scooped up Frenzy, transforming into his police car mode to leave his Viacon troops and Blastwave in the dust. "Sorry, but I don't feel like dying today." Barricade. Blastwave bellowed. "Get back here, coward." The munitions expert sneered down to Denki in disgust. "Faye, it does not matter. You do not scary me, little child." Denki clawed his hands, preparing for his attack. "Not now, but you will." He thrust his arms up toward the sky and snapped his head back, screaming to the heavens, indiscriminate shock, 2,000,000 volts. All at once, the lightning around Denki went surging out, creating a sound almost like a lightning strike, crack-a-thoom. And then from there, the electricity was dispersed all throughout the area, striking the Viacons and Blastwave with a staggering amount of force. Ziza-ot. Ya. Quadruple A-og. Blastwave could only scream in pain as the lightning coursed through his very being, with one bolt even striking him in the optic. He had been struck by electricity like this many times before, but compared to the child's first blast, this definitely hurt much more. The Viacons all screamed as well, at least the ones who were still above ground. By the time the massive surge was over, every single one of them was charred and singed, their mesh burning, even. Many Viacons fell instantly, alive, but in stasis lock, while Blastwave remained standing. The Khan, with now only one optic functional, forced a grin and chuckled defiantly. "Huh, is that all you, wham." Denki relaxed as he saw the one who hurt his friend fall before him, falling into stasis as he was knocked out. He then fell to his knees to let his tears flow freely, his hands covering his eyes. Oh God, what did I just do? That's what we'd like to know. The blonde snapped his head back to see his friends, the teachers, and Sideswipe and Bulkhead all emerge from the cement dome. Eijiro and Mina rushed over to him, sliding to a halt as they put their hands to his shoulders. Hey man, you okay? The redhead grinned. No. Denki shook his head, only for his neck to twinge slightly. My legs feel like jelly and I'm tasting nothing but metal. Mina winced and sucked in a breath through her teeth. Yeah, well, that'll happen when you go supernova like that. Vlad stepped up and crossed his arms. You let your emotions get the better of you. Denki felt his gut sink at the admonishing tone, but took it nonetheless. Seeing your friend fall before you like that caused you to lose control. He narrowed his eyes at his fledgling hero disapprovingly. I'm sure that I don't have to tell you that cannot be afforded to happen again. A smarter villain would have been keen to take advantage of this. Denki rubbed his tears away and took a deep breath, nodding at his words. Right, why you're right, sir. What I did was, completely out of line. I'm sorry. Well, I suppose there is a bright side, your opponent wasn't smart. Vlad pointed out, gesturing to all of the knocked out Viacons. Plus, you took out a whole swath of the enemy forces in one blast, so there's that. And thankfully, none of us were hurt, more importantly. Power Loader added. Why yeah, wait, Sunstreaker. Denki tried to get up, but his knees buckled, leading Eijiro and Mina to catch him. Is he okay? Please tell me he's okay. Smintos grimaced at the question, his eyes focused on the yellow bot in question. See for yourself, lad. The group rushed over to see Sunstreaker still on his stomach with Bulkhead right by his side, but the situation before them wasn't pretty. There was still a gaping hole in the middle of Sunstreaker's back, and by now, it had started pooling energon inside it. The young bot was bleeding out, and fast. Still, somehow, he hadn't slipped into stasis lock, and he weakly moved his head around to smile to his friend. Haha, wow, man. I could feel the tingles all the way over here. Hawk. Why you really let him have it, didn't you? Sunstreaker. Denki wrenched himself free and dropped next to his friend, reaching out to place a hand on his arm. Jay, just hang tight. We'll get a ground bridge open, get you back to base, and... Denki, there might not be enough time. Bulkhead informed. He's already lost a lot of energon, and... I don't care. The electrification user snapped. There has to be something we can do. Anything. Just then, Sideswipe spoke up again. Way ahead of you. The others watched as the red bot had rushed right back over to them, having left to go get a certain something. Okay, so this might be a long shot, but, he lifted up what he had retrieved, the medigun and backpack that Flatline was using. I'm pretty sure I saw how Flatline used this thing. If this thing can heal a huge bot like Blastwave, this has to work on Sunstreaker, right? Everyone glanced to one another warily, only for Mina to put on a hopeful smile. Only one way to find out, right? Sideswipe hummed in agreement and slipped the pack on, taking up the medigun in hand. He flipped an activation switch and held the handle firmly, aiming the gun right for his brother. Come on bro, it's not your time yet. He thrust forward the lever on top of the gun, sending out a red stream of energy at his brother, and just like that, Sunstreaker took a deep intake of air. The team watched as his inner workings repaired themselves and the energon drained, all while his outer mesh rapidly healed as well. Within 10 seconds, the wound was completely gone, leaving Sunstreaker to clear his vent system and hack up the remaining energon. Denki's eyes lit up and he laughed victoriously, throwing himself onto Sunstreaker in relief. Ahahaha. Sonny, you're alive. Yeah, I guess I am. He picked his friend up and set him on his shoulder, breathing out as he looked to his brother. Thanks, bro. You're a lifesaver. Sideswipe took the medigun off and tossed it to the side. And don't you forget it. Bam. Everyone came to attention as something very loud shook the ground beneath their feet, leading them to look up and see a plume of dust coming from the other side of the ship. Okay, now, you guys should stay here for now, got it? Sideswipe advised. The rest of us will go see what the heck that was all about. Hey, I won't argue. Denki concurred. I can barely feel my legs anyway. I'll remain here and watch over them. Vlad offered. The rest of you go see what's happening, on the double." The group saluted back to him before rushing off to go help with whatever was happening, all while Vlad eyed the duo behind him. "I hope the two of you have learned something valuable from this experience." Denki and Sunstreaker eyed one another as well, and both of them unanimously nodded. "Being cocky can get you killed if you're not careful," the Autobot concluded. "And letting your emotions get the better of you can be dangerous," Chargebolt added. Vlad gave them an approving smirk, but made sure they didn't see it. See. You are learning. Gah, where do these things keep coming from? They're coming from his mouth. How many of these things are there? How should I know? He keeps making them. Just keep shooting. Ectoplasm had to admit, there was a part of him that was relishing these sorts of reactions. It had been a long time since he had seen this type of response to his quirk, no doubt about it. Still, he knew that there was a job that needed to be done, so he just kept right at it. He opened his mouth yet again and made more clones, the duplicates emerging from the strange mist that erupted from said orifice. He called out to his assigned student to make certain he was alright. "Tenya, how are things with you?" Not too far away, Tenya himself was currently outspeeding several Viacons in their car modes, keeping his speed at maximum. Those laps that Strongarm had put him through were finally paying off. "I'm doing well, Mr. Ectoplasm, worry not." Just then, however, the armored student caught sight of more Viacons, and they were driving straight toward him. On second thought. "We got him now," one of the foot soldiers sounded off. "Quick, box him in. Don't let him get away." Beneath his helmet, Tenya wore a knowing smile. "Is that right? Well, sorry to disappoint you, Shum." Tenya paused on the balls of his right foot and pivoted suddenly, letting loose a burst from his left engine to allow him to sharply turn and dash off in another direction. Within moments, he heard the sounds of shouting and crashing, assuring him that a multi-car pile-up had just happened. "But I'm afraid that you are the ones who've been boxed." While the pile-up had been loud, it didn't impede Kyoka from hearing that bad retort, even while she was several yards away. "You, Iida, we need to work on your snappy comebacks." She shifted her eyes back up to the Viacons that were coming her way, a smirk of her own forming on her lips. "Oh, so you guys wanna take me head on, huh? Alright, I've been wanting to perform a new set anyways. Tell me what you think of this." She plugged her jacks into her wrist-mounted speakers and slammed her fists to the ground, blasting sonic waves out through the speakers and into the earth below. "I call this, heartbeat distortion." The force of the sonic blasts were enough to make the ground tremble, and even crack apart in some places, making the Viacons lose their balance and fall straight to their AFTS. Once they were all down, Kyoka transferred her jacks into her boots, but all the same, the sound waves kept coming. Only this time, they actually blasted the bots themselves. "Ah, so much noise. My audio receptors. Boom. Ah, they popped. Ow. How is she as loud as Soundwave? Hey, ya think y'all like her set?" Kyoka's eyes widened as present Mike hopped in right next to her, the blonde DJ's hands in his pockets. "Well, lemme know what ya think of mine, ya dig?" He took in a big breath of air and screamed at the top of his lungs. "Why Present Mike's sonic blasts were much different from Kyoka's were. For one, they seemed to have a yellow tinge to them, perhaps thanks to some form of energy. But unsurprisingly, this blast was much bigger, and louder than Kyoka's. So much so that the punk rocker had to cover her own ears to bear through it. But unfortunately, the Viacons weren't so lucky. Many of them started to short-circuit as their audio receptors kept popping all over the place, and one by one, they fell flat on their backs, the pain too much to bear. Present Mike and Kyoka stopped once the final one dropped, and the student crossed her arms up at her teacher. "Ya know, I could have handled him by myself." "Well, of course ya could have, earphone." Present Mike recognized. "But as your overseer, it's my job to make sure that happens, ya know. Can't go around on a risky mission like this doing everything without some backup, feel me?" Kyoka rolled her eyes and scoffed at that. "Yeah, I get it. Hey, where'd Jazz and Strongarm go?" Bam, bam, bam. The group had their answer almost immediately as they heard gunfire not too far away. They lifted their heads to see Jazz and Strongarm in the midst of battle with Skywarp and Swift respectively, the pairs of adversaries exchanging fire. Jazz just narrowly avoided a point-blank shot from Skywarp, performing a kickflip to send the Seeker's arm back and away from him. MHA. Almost had me there, Warp. But ya gotta be quick, ZWOM. Crack. Yow. In mere seconds, Skywarp teleported behind Jazz, striking him upside the head with the handle of his shotgun. How's that for quick, Autobot? Jazz. Kyoka started forward, rushing to help her friend. But she was quickly brought to a halt by Present Mike. Whoa, earphone jack, slow your roll. Gah. Hey, what's the big deal? The punk rocker snapped. We've gotta help Jazz. Sure, nah, but we can't go rushing headlong into that kinda sitch. Mike pointed up at Skywarp's guns. If he so much as gets a shot off on ya, you're fried, ya dig. We gotta be smart bout this. Kyoka furrowed her brow at him. Okay, what do you suggest? The pro-hero pointed finger guns at her with an assuring wink. Follow my lead, my fellow audio-lovin' peep. We'll get Jazz out of there in no time. Don't call me a peep again and I'll go along with anything. Kyoka kept her ears sharp as she listened to present Mike's plan, and as much as she hated to admit it, it actually sounded pretty good. Okay, not bad, she smirked. Let's blow him out of the water. Present Mike gave her a thumbs up and they went their separate ways, going off to either side of the battling duo. Jazz, meanwhile, had just gotten kicked in the midsection. The lieutenant was sent hurtling into a nearby boulder, which cracked the moment he hit it. He fell to the ground and, in seconds, was met with Skywarp porting in front of him again. Gotta say, Jazz, this is sad. You're one of the best the Autobots have to offer and you're getting pummeled. What does that say about yourself? HMPH, well, between the two of us, Jazz sneered up at Skywarp as he held his middle, bearing through the pain. At least I'm not the big bully here. What can I say? Sometimes, ya gotta push people around to get what you want. Skywarp raised his shotguns, ready to put the lieutenant out of his misery. Now, death comes. Just then, Jazz caught sight of Kyoka and Present Mike approaching from behind the Seeker, coming in from either flank. His lips curled into a small grin, a feeling telling him he knew exactly what would come next. Actually, ya might wanna put a rain check on that. Suddenly, from his shoulders, Jazz activated his sonic emitters, the pair of high-intensity speakers taking Skywarp by surprise. Gotcha, glitch. What the, oof. His guard down, Jazz kicked Skywarp in the gut and made him fumble back, directly in the path of Present Mike and Kyoka. And then, all at once, all three let loose on their sonic attacks, with Jazz providing a cool guitar tune to go with his. Thankfully, the way they were positioned meant that they didn't get hit by their own attacks, all while Skywarp took the full brute of it. Ya ahhgg. Raahhhhhh. Stop the noise. Sorry, asshole, not happening. Kyoka screamed. I said, stop. ZWOM. In a purple flash, Skywarp disappeared, only to reappear just a few feet away. Alright, more fooling Aru, ack. Crunch. As quick as a flash, Jazz whirled around and slammed Skywarp's head straight into the boulder, creating a crack that actually split the boulder straight in half. The purple and black Seeker groaned as he released his grip on his shotguns and fell over, slipping into unconsciousness. Hee, guess he couldn't handle that much sound. Jazz chuckled victoriously at their win. He crouched down as Kyoka and Mike came up to him, offering a fist bump for each. Nice work back there, guys. Really showed ol' Warp what sound like that can do. Kyoka returned the gesture with a thumbs up. No prob, Jazz. No one messes with my friends and gets away with it. At that moment, though, Kyoka caught sight of Strongarm and Swift's battle, and unfortunately, the cadet was on the back foot. Oh geez, over there. Strongarm needs help. But Present Mike just waved it off. I wouldn't worry about it, kid. Take another look. The group watched as Strongarm went blow for blow against Swift, though it was obvious that the copter bot had the advantage. Her fists glowed an eerie green as she kept up her attacks, and with every strike, she pushed Strongarm closer and closer to the massive, sloping boulder just beside the base. Hiya, Chaw, you and your Autobot pals are gonna regret coming here. Swift swung her leg in a wide arc, kicking Strongarm's midsection and tripping her into the boulder. Once I'm through with you, I'm going right in after your friends and I'm gonna dispose of them the same way. What you think about that? I think you're way in over your head. Whoa. Strongarm pulled her head back, narrowly avoiding an energy blast. Raising her crossbow, she took aim, only for Swift to kick it up as the trigger was pulled. The blast struck the boulder overhead, putting a small crack in it. Naughty girl. Swift wagged her finger as she had Strongarm pinned. We're gonna have to beat some sense into you, aren't we? Not on my watch. The two femmes were surprised at the sound of Tenya's voice, the engine user rushing in on foot and jumping straight up. Strongarm, clear the way. Engine boost. With those words, Tenya's engines let loose a powerful blast, propelling one of his legs up to perform a kick right where the small crack had formed. The very moment it connected, the crack grew until the entire top part of the boulder broke off and came falling down. Swift's optics widened and she was about to move, when Strongarm pushed back against her leg and sent her sprawling to the ground. Sorry, gotta run. No, you get back, bam. The boulder landed on top of Swift, crushing her and leaving nothing but her hands exposed. She tried clenching them to activate her power, but the trauma to her head was too much. I hate all of you. Bleg. Strongarm and Tenya both breathed heavily, keeping their sights squarely on Swift and the boulder to make sure she didn't move. Thankfully, she seemed well and truly out, so they breathed a sigh of relief. Phew, well, that was intense. Strongarm smiled toward her partner. Thanks for the assist, Tenya. I probably wouldn't have come up with a plan like that in that moment, honestly. It was nothing, really. Tenya bowed his head. I simply saw you in peril and did what any selfless hero would have done. The whole part with the cracked boulder was a happy accident. The cadet crouched down and placed a hand on her partner's shoulder. Well, it was a great accident, I'll say that much. Tenya, Strongarm. The duo whirled around to see Jazz coming their way, with Kyoka and Present Mike in tow. You cats okay? We saw the whole thing go down. The pair gave him a salute. Oh, we're fine, Lieutenant, really. Strongarm assured. Just a bit of quick thinking on Tenya's part helped us along. Kyoka went up and gave Tenya a jab in the arm. Hey, I'll say it was. Iida, that maneuver was awesome. Great thinkin' back there. Thank you, Jiro. Oh no, incoming. Tenya whipped his arm up and pointed across the way, where everyone saw a barricade approaching them fast with his sirens blaring. The Decepticon cop brought up a pair of blasters from his hood, not letting up on the gas for a minute as he ran the humans down. That tears it. I'm through with all of this. I'm taking you posers down once and for all, and there's nothing stopping me. Before anyone could react, though, ectoplasm leapt in front of them from out of nowhere, glaring straight back at Barricade with a resolute stance. Oh really? Then perhaps this counts as nothing. Ectoplasm opened his maw and let loose another blast of mist, though this one was much bigger than the last. And the reason for that became very apparent as, instead of multiple clones, the hero had created one giant clone of himself, taking the students and Autobots off guard. The massive clone bent down, and then opened its giant mouth. Now, get ready to be sent to giant bite detention. OSLAAAAA, chomp. Crunch. Barricade's whole roof caved in as the massive clone bit down on him, before shaking him in his mouth and then spitting him back out. The cop transformed as he hit the side of the ship, his back and midsection very worse for wear. That was disgusting. And just like that, the con was out, and the giant ectoplasm clone disappeared. Alright, I believe that's the last of them. Did you know he could do that? Kyoka muttered. No, not at all. Tenya shook his head. Jazz's shoulders slumped and he gave his own relieved sigh. Well, at least we took care of our job out here. He craned his head up to the hole in the side of the dark side, his thoughts going to his allies in the ship itself. I just hope the others are doing their part in there, too. From the moment Thundercracker had revealed the mini-con's little trick, things had gone from 0 to 100 in only a few moments. The Blue Seeker had wasted no time in charging forth into battle wielding his new weapon, the Cyber Caliber, and it was evident that he was very confident. Why? Because he went straight for Optimus Prime. The Autobot commander brought out his axe and countered Thundercracker's first strike, though much to his surprise, there was more force behind it than he'd initially thought. Thundercracker must be getting a power-up from wielding the blade. With that thought in his mind, he kept matching Thundercracker's blows, all while the others engaged their enemy on their own as well. RC had went straight for Shadow Striker, the two clashing blades with one another in close quarters combat. "You've made the biggest mistake of your life, Shadow Striker," RC said with a deadly tone. "It was one thing to kill Tailgate, but if you think I'll let you do the same to my best friend." "Very commendable, RC, but also foolish," Shadow admonished. "After all, why delay the inevitable, NES paw?" RC's lips curled into a snarl, pulling one arm back to switch her blade with a pistol. "The only thing inevitable around here is your defeat. Phew, phew, phew. Hun hun hun." Shadow Striker chortled as she flipped back several times, avoiding the shots with every leap before pulling out her rifle. "Very good, RC, but not good enough." Before either femme knew it, they had gotten into a firefight. Never mind the fact that they were in a hallway with limited space, they just wanted to shoot one another. The same could be said for Starscream and Windblade, though mostly just Starscream. The Seeker commander kept blasting his null rays at the city speaker, but she used her sword to deflect the blasts while getting ever closer to him. And at that point, it was just flat out annoying him. "Ah, will you just stand still for 2 seconds so I can hit you?" "And why would I do that?" "Gia." Windblade let out a battle cry as she rushed in with her Stormfall sword, though Starscream was quick to dodge before bringing out his own sword from his wing. "Ah, finally. Seems you may yet have some gears turning up in that processor of yours, Screamer. You dare insult me." Starscream pushed back with his sword, pressing the advantage on Windblade. "For that, you shall be punished." The femme smirked as her wings popped out of her back. "Try me. FWOOOOM." A pair of twin air blasts came bursting out of the VTOL fans, causing Starscream to be sent flying back. "Oh, I'm gonna enjoy this." While Windblade launched herself back into the fray, Springer was currently in the midst of a skirmish between himself and several Viacons. Fortunately, he had fought too many of these things in the past to consider them an actual threat, so he, Sawback and Fangblade had relatively no trouble taking them down. The mini-cons bit and tore into their armor plating while he finished them with some quick slices from his sword or a blast from his gun. "Hey, if this is the best you got, I'd hate to see what your worst looks like." "Agreed, Springer," All Might called out as he and Izuku stood back to back, the two one-for-all users busy taking on some Viacons of their own. And they were pulverizing the opposition something fierce. The duo met the cons from the get-go with powerful strikes that none of them could withstand. Even Izuku at only 5% was enough to give them a hard time. These Viacons are completely sad, that's for sure. Young Midoriya, perhaps another double-team attack. Right, Izuku affirmed. Double. Texas. SMAAAAASSHH. All at once, All Might and Izuku thrust their fists toward the incoming Viacons, sending them all flying back with a powerful gust of wind that blew throughout the hallways. As that was happening, Snipe just kept doing what he was good at, shooting things and making his target. In this case, his main target was the Viacons' visors, namely to take out their optics. What's more, Momo had actually joined him as well, having created a rifle from her own body. "Gotta say, Kriti, I'm impressed," Snipe admitted. "Where'd ya get that aim?" "Mother and father had me take archery classes," Momo said as she fired another shot at their optics. "Never an easy shot, but she made do. This is sort of like that, only a bit more complex. The hard part was making the rifle." "Hey, I'm sure." Snipe chuckled before calling out to Ochako and 13. "How about you gals? Y'all doing alright?" Not too far away, Ochako had just finished touching several Viacons on their legs, making at least 5 of them start floating in the air. At that point, she would have been throwing up by now, but thanks to her training, she was keeping it together relatively well. "Ha, we're doing fine. 13, you ready?" "Sure 13 confirmed before raising her hand, pointing a finger to the floating robots. "Now, Decepticons, prepare to face." The cap on her pointer finger opened up, and in a single second, all of the air began to get sucked into the glove as 13 let her quirk do the work. Black hole. What's happening? The Viacons all screamed in panic as they felt their weightless bodies being pulled closer and closer to the black hole user, with nearly nothing they could do to stop it. They tried clawing at the ground and walls, but the force of the pull was far too much for them to withstand. And what was worse was that they could feel just how powerful this void was. It was almost too much to bear. Stop, please. One Viacon begged. We surrender, just please don't suck us in. I was hoping you'd say that. 13 cheerfully said. Gravity, if you would. The gravity user nodded and brought her fingers together. Right, release. All at once, the cons came crashing down on the ground, with 13 putting the cap back on her finger to stop her quirk. The Viacons huddled up, terrified at what they had nearly experienced. PSH, and Blastwave calls us the babies. While the battle raged, Optimus and Thundercracker just kept at it, the two clashing their weapons together many a time. Prime had to admit, the amount of power emanating from the sword itself was almost too great for him to withstand. But still, he could feel the Matrix helping him along, giving him an extra surge in power to help compensate. He and Thundercracker met once again, the Cyber Caliber and Energon axe creating sparks as they hit one another. Thundercracker, please, think of what you're doing. Optimus implored. Is this really worth it? To hold an innocent human against her will in order to get what you want? It's not what I want, Optimus, it's what Starscream wants. Thundercracker urged, delivering a swift kick to the Prime to put some distance between them. Trust me, if I had it my way, we would have only kidnapped Bumblebee, and that's it. And that makes it all right. Prime questioned, going back in for some more strikes. Kidnapping bots against their will is wrong and you know that, Thundercracker. Why go along with any plan concocted by Starscream if you're opposed to it? Thundercracker narrowed his optics. He is my brother. But Prime didn't give in. And what of Megatron? Why still serve him when you know that he is not the same revolutionary that you once followed? Once again, more strikes were had, and before long, Thundercracker was backed against the wall. He is manipulative, cruel, and won't stop at anything to get what he thinks he deserves. You must realize that the Decepticons are a shell of their former selves. The Blue Seeker paused at this. He so badly wanted to argue, but at the same time, the Autobot had a point. And yet still, there was a voice in the back of his mind telling him that this was what was necessary. I'll do what I must to see the future that only Megatron can bring about. No longer will we be trapped by the shackles of society, Prime. Graw. He brought his legs up and kicked Prime away before raising the Cyber Caliber, the blade glowing even more intently than before. The Seeker charged forward and started spinning, charging the sword up before giving it a mighty swing, and then, from out of the blade, a huge energy wave slashed out at Optimus, striking him hard in the chest and sending him into the opposite wall. What's more, everyone saw it happen. Optimus. The team shouted. Ah, the sword's even more powerful than I imagined. Optimus held his head as he recuperated, but he didn't have long as he saw Thundercracker barreling toward him at high speed. Boom. With a deafening burst of speed from his thrusters, the Blue Seeker raised his blade and brought it down on Optimus, but the Autobot leader reacted quickly and brought his axe up in a counter swing. The impact was so powerful it sent a concussive wave through the whole hallway, taking everyone off balance while sending the ship into a shaking frenzy. Good God Almighty! Snipe exclaimed, just barely avoiding being crushed under a falling Viacon. He tackled Momo out of the way of another and the two sprawled to the floor, quickly getting up to try and regroup. What the hell even is that sword? The Cyber Caliber, Windblade answered, her concentration still squarely on Starscream. An ancient mini-con weapon said to be blessed by Micronus Prime himself. There aren't many other blades that can stand up against it, unless, her eyes darted back and forth between her Stormfall sword, Starscream and Thundercracker, the Seeker commander just starting to get up. She then spotted Springer out the corner of her optic and called out to him, Springs. How about we switch things up a bit? The Wrecker snapped his head around and raised an eye ridge at her. Really? Right now? The city speaker furrowed her metal brow to him seriously. Just trust me, I have a plan to help Prime. It took a few moments, but eventually, Springer shrugged and relented. Well, alright, if ya say so. Sprong. Starscream groaned and his hand went to his head as he started to get up. Oh, my aching processor, clang. Wag. But Springer quickly brought him back down with his mighty leap, knocking the Decepticon for a loop. "Hi, remember me?" Springer and his mini-cons grouped up on Starscream before he nudged his head to Windblade. "Go, help him." Windblade nodded and transformed into her jet mode, flying straight over the battle and directly toward Prime and Thundercracker. She made sure to shoot Shadow Striker on the way, too, allowing RC to get control of the fight. When she closed in on her target, though, she transformed and let out a sharp battle cry as she sent a flying kick right into Thundercracker's face, taking him down momentarily. Optimus. Optimus was surprised, but nonetheless grateful for her interjection. "Windblade, thank you, No time, Optimus." Windblade stood in front of him and held her Stormfall sword aloft, her targeting systems zeroed in on Thundercracker. "We need to get to the prison cells, or rather, you need to get to the prison cells, and fast." She saw that he was about to protest, but she shot him down quick. "Think about it, you're the only one with the firepower strong enough to get past those defenses. We'll be fine here for a little bit, believe me." To say that Optimus was hesitant was an understatement. The main priority was to rescue Bumblebee and Midnight, that much he knew. But still, it didn't seem right that he was leaving his troops behind to confront the threat alone. Prime. Thundercracker shot up and blasted forward, only to be met by Windblade clashing her Stormfall sword with his Cyber Caliber. What's more, there were several more Viacons coming down the hall as well. Reinforcements had arrived. Just then, however, All Might jumped up and landed on Prime's shoulder briefly. "Optimus, worry not. We will be fine here, believe me." The number 1 hero gave the Autobot leader a thumbs up. "Take the kids, Snipe and 13 and get down there. I'll handle those reinforcements." "By yourself?" Optimus said incredulously. "All Might, are you certain you can?" Don't worry." All Might assured. "I've handled far worse than this before. You all just go. Get B, get Midnight, and we'll all be on our way out of here soon." For now, though, the symbol of peace thrust off of Prime's shoulder and flew toward the incoming Viacons, taking them all by surprise. "It's time all of you learned your place." He came somersaulting down to the floor and landed on his feet before pulling his arms back, crossing them over his chest. "Tennessee, SMAAAASH." The hero swiped his arms and sent a burst of wind out at the Viacons, blasting them all back and off their feet. Seeing this, Optimus felt a surge of self-assurance flow through him, and he nodded. "Very well, good luck." The Autobot leader went over to the other humans, transforming and plowing through a crowd of more Viacons in order to get to them. Optimus opened his doors, beckoning them in. "Come, we have no more time to waste." "Right, we're coming, Optimus." Ochako climbed into the cab first, followed by Momo, Izuku, 13 and Snipe. It was a bit of a tight squeeze, but they all managed, and soon, Optimus rolled for the elevator. What Optimus hadn't seen, however, was All Might silently coughing to himself, and a small trickle of blood spurting from the corner of his lips. Still, he kept his smile about him as he wiped the blood away. "That's it, my friend. And don't worry, and we'll all make it through this." As Prime drew closer to the elevator, Snipe caught sight of the elevator button and stuck his upper half through one of Prime's windows, pulling out his gun to take aim. In a single shot, he hit the button and the elevator opened for them, allowing Prime to drive in. Nice work, Mr. Snipe," Izuku commented. "Now all we need is to look out." "Me," Starscream bellowed, charging straight for the elevator. "You won't be getting away that easily, tank." Tonk. And just like that, Sawback and Fangblade came flying around from behind and struck Starscream in the face, stopping him just short of the elevator. The doors closed as Springer gave them all a thumbs up from the outside. "Third level down, can't miss it," the triple changer said. Once the elevator began moving, everyone disembarked from Optimus and he transformed, the Autobot leader wearing a somewhat upset expression. Izuku noticed this immediately and placed a hand on Prime's leg. "Oh Optimus, I know this isn't exactly how we planned things out, but at least we're on the right track, right?" Yes, that is fortunate, Izuku. Still, it is frustrating to leave my Autobots behind like this." "Optimus, I'm certain they'll be fine," 13 assured. "They're capable bots, I'm sure. They'll be there when we come back, which hopefully won't take long." The elevator came to an abrupt stop on the third level down and the doors parted open, only for them to be met with two Viacons on the other side pointing their guns at them. The humans gasped while 13 deadpanned at the sight. "And, there it is. Don't move. Hands above your, wait, don't, gong." The Viacons felt their heads reverberating after Optimus grabbed and crashed them together, the both of them falling over at the Autobots' feet. The humans stared up at Prime, surprised he'd pull off such a move. "Apologies, but we have no time for this. Come, everyone." With that, the group charged into the brig, calling out for their allies in hopes of getting an answer. "Bumblebee, let us know you're here." Snipe gave a holler as well. "Midnight, ya here? Speak up if ya can hear us." Thankfully, they didn't have to wait for very long. "Snipe, is that you? Oh, thank God, please get us out of there." The group snapped right to attention and immediately followed the sound of Midnight's voice, following it all the way to a certain cell. "Hello, I'm not just hearing things, am I? UARE here, right? HA, Nimeri, we've found you." 13 shouted back. 13, you're here too. How in the world did you, wait, who is that other voice with you? "Don't worry, we'll explain as soon as we get in." 13 craned her head up to Optimus curiously. "How do we get in?" Optimus glanced off to the side, seeing a panel set up next to the door. He went over and began inputting several codes into the console, only for each one to be immediately rejected with a loud buzz and red screen. After trying every combination that he could think of, Optimus grumbled and brought out his axe. "Well, I tried." Wham! With one swing, Prime destroyed the console and the door's locks were disengaged, prompting him to go over and start prying the door open. "Don't worry, ma'am, we'll have you and Bumblebee out of there soon enough." Inside the cell, however, Midnight's eye twitched. "Excuse me. Did you just call me ma'am?" "Sir, I don't know who you are, but I am the right, young age of, but Midnight's voice became lost to her the moment the door was opened, and on the other side was a bot that made her jaw drop. He had a patriotic color scheme and a strong build, the windows and grille of his truck mode looking like a pair of pecs and strong abs. He broad shoulders with smokestacks on them, and a pair of powerful legs that had tires on their calves. He also had a dynamic helmet, which had a faceplate that added an air of mystery to him. All in all, Midnight suddenly felt very hot and bothered. She bit her lip seductively and made bedroom eyes at the new robot. "Well, hello Mr. Tall, red, white and blue and handsome. I take it you're the cavalry." "Indeed, and I must profusely apologize to you," the bot said as he walked in. "Your involvement with this entire situation was never meant to happen." He placed a hand on his chest as he introduced himself. "My name is Optimus Prime, leader of the Autobots." Midnight's eyes brightened up significantly. "Oh, so you're the leader of the Autobots." She whipped her head over to Bumblebee with a wide grin. "B, you never told me that your leader was such a hunk." B's eyes widened in disbelief while Optimus was just flat out confused. Hunk. However, the topic was immediately discarded when the humans came running in, and Izuku broke out into a relieved smile the moment he saw his best friend. Bumblebee. B buzzed happily as Izuku activated full cowling and shot right up, dealing several strikes to the floating clamps that were keeping B in place. Before he knew it, the yellow bot was freed and he fell to the floor, only for Izuku to land on him in a hug. "Haha, you're okay. Kyoka and I have been worried sick about you. ZRKT, every little thing is gonna be alright." B sang through his radio, giving Izuku a pat on the back. "Wait, Midoriya," Midnight shouted before noticing Ochako and Momo were there as well, and all three students were in their hero costumes. "And Uraraka and Yaoyorozu, what are you all doing here?" Her attention went to 13 and Snipe as they came over as well. "You two, explain, now. Trust me, we'll fill ya in later," Snipe promised as he loaded his gun up and took aim for her own shackles. 4 shots later, the restraints were destroyed and Midnight fell to the ground, though she was caught by Optimus himself. "Right now, we've gotta get out of this dump." Optimus nodded as he set Midnight down. "He's correct. Every moment we remain here, the riskier it will be to take our leave, so, Miss Midnight, are you alright?" The R-rated hero was leaning on Optimus' still outstretched hand, sending him a rather dreamy gaze. "Oh, me. I'm more than fine, believe me. In her mind, however, good lord, Bumblebee's a cutie and his leader is an absolutely shredded robot. Did I just find a new kink for myself? Momo stepped up and got her teacher's attention. Miss Midnight, it's not safe in this ship. We need to leave now, or, Optimus. The Prime was taken aback by the sound of static, his optics going straight to the control console on the opposite wall. The screen was blank for a moment before it switched to something, or rather, someone else. The figure that was now on screen was obscured almost entirely by shadow, the only exception being a blood-red visor that glared back at them. They could make out his silhouette, but only barely, seeing that he had a large wing sticking up from his back. He spoke in a deep voice as he addressed the Autobot leader, HM. Well, Optimus Prime. We meet at last. Optimus' optics widened in shock. He could only make one guess as to who this bot was. Unicronus. A slew of gasps came from the kids after he spoke the Khan's name. Wait, so, that's Unicronus? Ochako asked, shrinking away a little behind Izuku. Wow, he's scarier than I thought he'd be. Yeah, though I can't help but feel something's off about him. Izuku noted, with Bumblebee nodding silently next to him. The yellow bot was particularly transfixed by the screen, finding the general's shape to be somewhat familiar. Prime's sights narrowed at the Decepticon general in contempt. So, you are on this planet. I suppose that means Megatron is serious about wanting me dead. Guilty as charged. Unicronus shrugged. I have to say, though, seeing you alive is something I'd never thought I'd see again. Really thought you were a goner, but, hey, ironically, Megatron never believed that. He balled a hand up into a fist. But you're wrong, Optimus. Megatron does wanna see you alive, and in chains as brought back to Cybertron. Something tells me he wants to oversee death himself. He knows how hard it is to get rid of me. That is the reason why he wants to do the deed himself. Prime said simply. I take it you'll be on your way down here, then. Much to everyone's surprise, Unicronus laughed and gave an unexpected response. Ha ha ha. Oh no, Prime, you're mistaken. He leaned forward slightly, his grimace intensifying. I'm feeling generous today, so to speak. I had a feeling that Starscream's blasted plan would backfire in some way, so I'm prepared to cut ya a deal. Izuku didn't buy it, though. A deal with a Decepticon. There's a bad experience waiting to happen. Unicronus chortled at the remark. HM, you're smart, kid. It's obvious that Shatter and Dropkick left their mark on you. However, he shook his head, raising his hands to the screen. But no, I don't have any tricks planned here. I'm willing to offer your freedom, no questions asked, no strings attached. The heroes and Autobots had only a moment to be stunned before an equally shocked voice came from the screen. Unicronus, sir, what the pit are you thinking? Cried a feminine voice with a Hispanic accent. We can't just let these cabrons walk out of here. You know how mad Screamer's gonna be when. Silence. Unicronus suddenly snapped, making the humans gasp at the growl in his voice. This is my ship, and what I say goes. I don't care what Starscream thinks, his plans have all been faulty since we got here. His focus went back to the others as he continued, if you want something done right, you gotta do it yourself. And, believe me, Optimus, the main mech is gonna get the job done right, but only on his terms alone. Snipe placed a hand on his hip. Hey, wow, the man's got so much pride that he doesn't even wanna take advantage of Starscream's plan. 13 crossed her arms. Not sure how I feel about that. Prime, in all honesty, I think we've all had quite enough of this. Unicronus went on with a wave of his hand, only to slam his fist down on the arm of his chair. Rest assured, the Decepticons will not stop coming for you, but for now, he typed in a command and showed footage of the aftermath outside, showing just how many Decepticons were defeated. It's evident that your forces have overwhelmed ours. So in short, grab our friends, grab our shit, and go home, Optimus. Optimus considered Unicronus' words, taking note of how exhausted his Autobots and the heroes outside were. Add the fact that his forces inside the base were likely still fighting, and while he was still reluctant to take the Decepticon by his word, it was an opportunity he wasn't about to slip by. He reached up and activated his comm. Red alert, we have Bumblebee and Midnight. Prepare the ground bridge. Wise choice, Prime. Unicronus commended with a chuckle. Know this, though, when next we meet, you won't have this lucky of a chance. With that, the screen shut off, leaving the Autobots and heroes to themselves. "Well, he seems cheery," Midnight remarked. "So, we getting out of here or what?" "Indeed we are." Optimus transformed into his truck mode while B took on his Volkswagen mode, allowing everyone to pile inside. "Let's roll out of here." Back on the upper level, the skirmish between the bots and cons was still going down, with Windblade doing everything in her power to make sure no one got to that elevator. Granted, that was difficult when Thundercracker had her backed up right against it, but to be fair, the Deceptions had them all surrounded. Herself, RC, Springer and even All Might found themselves encircled by the Decepticon forces, the symbol of peace seemingly growing severely tired, to the point that his body was steaming. "I've only seen that happen once, but I'm pretty sure I know what it means," Windblade figured. HM. Oh, how all of you got off to such a strong start." Starscream snickered. "But alas, seems you've all succumbed to the fate you're all destined to have, defeat at the hands of Starscream, ding." Huh. All of a sudden, the elevator door opened, revealing Optimus, Bumblebee, and the humans on the other side. "Oh, scrap. Bumblebee," RC exclaimed, seeing her best friend alive and well. "You're okay. Autobots, transform and roll out." Optimus rallied as he revved out of the elevator and passed his troops. He barreled through the Decepticon ranks, even slamming directly into Starscream. "We have who we came for, so it's time to go home." Beep beep. All Might, the symbol of peace, smiled in relief at the sight of his protege approaching in Bumblebee, while the other humans went to their respective Autobots. B opened his back door and Izuku beckoned All Might inside. "Come on, quick, before you lose it." All Might quickly clambered into Bumblebee's backseat and, poof. "Ah, thank you, young Midoriya." Toshinori sighed. "Am I glad that you, ah." "Well hello, Toshinori." Midnight grinned from the driver's seat. "Good to see you here. I take it that Midoriya knows this secret, too." Yes, Midnight, he does. Along with one other student, too. "Good to see you're doing alright." "Believe me, I'm far more than alright." Midnight grinned eagerly as Bumblebee stepped on the gas. "I'm feeling freer than I've ever had before. Woo, let's blow this joint." Within moments, the Autobots all came bursting out of the hole they had created earlier and were met with the sight of their teammates already gathered up. Jazz smirked victoriously and pumped a fist in the air. "Haha, alright, come on gang, time to head on out." The lieutenant transformed into his Porsche mode and Present Mike climbed into the driver's seat, but Kyoka didn't get in. Kyo, let's go." The punk rocker smiled back to her friend as she jerked a thumb over to Bumblebee pulling up next to her. "Thanks, but I have my ride." She dashed over to B as Jazz drove off, giving the Beetle a brief hug before getting in. "Dude, do you have any idea how worried we were about you? You're lucky they didn't do anything to you." "ZRKT, sorry, ZRKT, to make you worry." Bumblebee apologized, opening his back door for her. "ZRKT, now hop in, ZRKT, before we get creamed." Autobots. Kyoka whipped her head up and gasped at the sight of an absolutely livid Starscream, scrambling into the back without any hesitation. "This is not over, do you hear me? Not over." He raised his null rays and began shooting at the retreating Autobots, only for his blasts to harmlessly hit the dirt as a ground bridge portal opened just a few feet from the ship. Within moments, all 10 Autobots went through, leaving the Seeker commander with his defeated forces, and his failure. Yow! Thundercracker approaching his brother from behind, letting go of the cyber caliber so that the mini-cons could transform back into their robot modes. Despite himself, he wore a small grin, even though it was clear they had failed. Farewell, Midnight. Hopefully something like this won't happen again. So, this is where you kids have been hiding these past 2 weeks. It had been about half an hour since the group had returned to base, and in that time, the team had done very little outside of recuperating after the mission. Midnight herself had been filled in on the whole situation, though the Autobots were surprised to find out that she actually knew quite a bit about it already. Apparently she and Thundercracker had spoken briefly, which the Autobots themselves didn't know how to feel about. Aside from that, the teachers, Optimus, and Agent Fowler had gathered for a brief meeting, no doubt discussing the students' performances on the mission. They had actually all gone outside to converse, namely because All Might was still in his skinny form and it was best to keep him out of the line of sight until he could properly buff back up again. So, while they spoke about the mission, the kids and other Autobots were free to give Midnight a tour of the base. "Yep, welcome to our science fiction club," Kyoka remarked. "We were gonna use that as our excuse at first, but then we remembered that UA doesn't do clubs, so we scrapped that." Well, I must say that this is quite the place you got here." Midnight sat down on the couch and reclined, gazing out to all of the Autobots who were gathered around. "And to think that all of you were living here right under our noses this whole time. It's almost too much to take in." Sideswipe came up and extended a hand. "Hey, sorry about that, Midnight. If this is too much at once, just let us know, Kay." "Oh, don't worry about it." Midnight waved off. "After being kidnapped by those Decepticons, I think I'm pretty well acclimated at this point. I'm just glad that none of them did anything to hurt ya." Bulkhead crossed his arms and lowered his head. "Believe me, if we hadn't gotten there in time." His optics trailed up to RC, who was leaning in a far corner of the room with a thoughtful expression. Bumblebee was standing next to her, resting a comforting hand over her own. "I'm afraid we would have had to prepare for the worst." The R-rated heroine glanced up to RC curiously at that. What do you mean?" Windblade shifted her eyes back and forth before lowering herself down and whispering to her, "The con that kidnapped you, Shadow Striker. She's responsible for the death of RC's protege back on Cybertron." That surprised the woman as her eyes went back to RC, who looked away from the group. To say that she was afraid it'd happen again to you and B would be an understatement. "I see." Midnight stood up and walked over to RC, saying, "You know, I would have thought you'd be happier to see your best friend alive." The pink femme set her sights back down to Midnight in surprise, only for her to narrow her optics. "I am happy, thank you very much." "Well, you don't seem to act like it. I'm just thinking about something else, and..." Midnight placed her hands on her hips. "Well, why are you, then? Don't you think you should be more focused on the positive thing that happened today?" She gestured over to Bumblebee, who smiled up to RC beneath his mouth guard. "You got your best friend back. Shadow Striker did nothing to him. If you keep focusing on getting revenge on her, then you're just going to make yourself more upset, you know." RC pursed her lips, frustrated that the woman had a point. "Yeah, I guess." RC. She made sure the femme was focused on her again before bowing her head. "I'm sorry." "Wait, what?" "Thinking back, I way overstepped my bounds with you," Midnight explained. "Especially when we first met. You didn't like how uncomfortable I made Bumblebee, and I get it. If you want me to back off from you and your friends, then I won't argue." RC reached her hand out, stopping Midnight before she could finish. "Wait, hold on a second, you're right." RC lowered her head and hugged her arms close to herself. "I am focused just a bit too much on revenge. And you making B uncomfortable did bother me. But, well, it's obvious that you're a good person." She gestured over to Izuku, Kyoka and Momo. "These three showed me that. So, if B and the students trust you, then I will, too. Just, make sure that things don't go too overboard, please." Midnight smiled and chuckled a little, nodding in agreement. "Of course, that sounds good to me. Besides, after today, you're probably going to be seeing a lot more of me." "Say what now?" "Oh yeah, I need to come here at least once a week. Both to make sure the students are doing okay," the teacher jerked her thumb toward the exit with a sultry grin. "And to get an eyeful of Optimus, if you know what I mean." Woo, what a hunk of metal. Judging from the slew of rather disturbed expressions from the Autobots and the students, it was obvious that many of them were uncomfortable. Too soon. Strongarm couldn't help but facepalm. "Just wait until you meet Alita, Midnight. Just you wait." Right at that moment, Sunstreaker, Red Alert, May and Denki came walking out of the med bay, the former seemingly doing okay. "Oh, Sunstreaker. How are you feeling?" "Ah, a lot better, actually." Sunstreaker pointed to his back. "Turns out that Medigun thing actually healed me pretty well. No internal damages or anything." Red Alert placed a hand to his chin. "So let me see if I got this straight. This device managed to instantly heal any injury that its target sustained, no matter how severe." Denki put his hands behind his head as he moved over to the others. "Yeah, pretty much. I charred Blastwave pretty good the first time, and Flatline was able to just heal him up with a flick of a switch. He wore a satisfied smile, eyeing his partner. But it might take a while before Blastwaves healed up from the second helping I gave him. I'm still trying to wrap my head around how ya did that, dude. Eijiro jabbed his friend in the shoulder. That was pretty intense. Mina suddenly jumped into the discussion, giving her own, unique take of what happened. Yeah, you were all like, Zeet. The acid user jerked her body around to make it look like she was getting shocked. And then Blastwave was all like, ah. It hurts so much. And then he went down like a giant tree being chopped down, it was so cool. Yeah, great job out there, Sparky. Mei smiled with a thumbs up. Didn't even fry your brain once. Kyoka folded her arms and gave a shrug. Gotta admit, I'm impressed, jamming yay. Please don't make that a regular thing. Denki pleaded, much to everyone's amusement. As everyone laughed, though, Tenya sighed as he felt his nerves begin to bubble up. Well, in any case, I only hope that the teachers have evaluated our performance fairly. He put on a small grin for his friends. Because, not to sound narcissistic, I would say we did rather well for the most part. Momo nodded back to the class rep. Agreed, Iida. Aside from a few minor hiccups, everything went rather smoothly, I think. Off to the side, Midnight couldn't help but feel proud. Here were 8 of her own first years, having just survived their first mission together, and they weren't even licensed heroes yet. However, she knew that she had to remain impartial, especially since she was the one who needed saving. Well, children, if it were up to me, I would say that you've all exceeded expectations. That earned her a bunch of grateful smiles from her students, but she held up a hand. Unfortunately, that's not my or your decision to make, it's theirs. She pointed over to the rest of the teachers, Fowler and Optimus coming inside, and just as quickly, the students felt very small under Aizawa's judgmental gaze. What's more, All Might seemed like he was struggling to keep it together, which meant that this meeting was probably going to be quick. Izuku swallowed hard and took a deep breath. Well, this is it. He turned to his friends, sending them a reassuring grin. Just so you guys know, even if we don't get their approval, I still think teaming with you guys was pretty great. Yeah, same here, Deku. Ochako beamed back. For our first mission, even if it wasn't official, at least we proved to ourselves that our training wasn't for nothing. Ahem, I suppose that's one thing you can all take away from this. Aizawa piped up, garnering the group's attention. It's true, you all have vastly improved over these past 2 weeks with the Autobots. Help, even more than I could have predicted. He lowered his head and stared at them through his dark locks. Still, judging by what happened on this mission alone, I will concede that most of you did rather well. He sent a sidelong glance at Denki, sending a chill up the blonde's spine. There's a few of you who definitely need work, but none of you screwed up big enough to compromise the mission, so that's a positive. I agree with Aizawa, though I probably would have worded it better. Agent Fowler said, not bad, kids. I'm very impressed with all of you today. Optimus knelt down in front of his teenage charges, his voice filled with pride. You have all performed quite admirably today, with some of you even helping take down some of the Decepticon's heaviest hitters. He chortled a bit as the thought was still processing in his head. Not once would I thought I'd see that day come. All Might coughed into his hand, eager to get through with this. Hawk hawk, why yes, the mission was a complete success. And with this success, I feel it's only necessary to reward you appropriately. He nodded to Aizawa expectantly, causing the homeroom teacher to sigh. Come now, Aizawa. The only way they'll get better is through experience, agreed. The erasure hero grumbled to himself, but relented nonetheless. Very well. From this day forward, you kids can accompany the Autobots on any mission. He raised a finger before anyone could so much as let out a cheer. If, you make sure to follow their orders too. The letter. I want you kids to listen to any commands Optimus gives you, and if he deems a situation too dangerous, you are to return to or stay at the base without question. Is that understood? Tenya saluted to their teacher dutifully from the get-go. Mr. Aizawa, sir, we understand completely. The teens all bowed their heads to Aizawa without hesitation. We'll be sure to not give the Autobots any trouble on these missions, and we all sincerely thank you for this opportunity. Yes, thank you, Mr. Aizawa, the others echoed. Aizawa was a little surprised by the response. He had expected at least a few rebellious groans from them, Mina and Denki especially. But the fact that they were staying serious about all of this definitely gave him a bit of optimism in this whole situation. Optimus craned his head down to him and extended a hand. "Thank you, Mr. Aizawa. Not only do the children appreciate this, but I do as well." "So do I," Fowler added. "Hopefully this way, we'll be able to stand an even better chance against the cons and whatever they have planned next." It's no problem." Aizawa shook the Optimus' hand and went to rub his eyes. Now, with all that out of the way, I think it's time to bring things in." He eyed his students once again as he told them about one last thing. "By the way, we took the liberty of lying to your parents over the phone about where you were. They think you're at the school doing some extracurricular activities, so don't worry about missing curfew. Just get home safely and take tomorrow to prepare yourselves." Aizawa's right. Come Monday, the sports festival will be here. All Might said with a thumbs up. "Remember, do your best and aim for the top. We'll all be watching and rooting for you, as will your Autobot friends." Optimus stood to his full height, extending a hand to his Autobots. "Indeed, we will. We wish you the best of luck, children, but for now, it's time we get you all back home. Autobots, you know what to do. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK." All of the Autobots transformed into their vehicle modes and opened their doors, offering students and teachers alike a ride home. The only ones who didn't were Windblade, Springer, Red Alert and Jazz, the four staying behind as everyone was able to fit into 5 Autobots alone. Izuku sighed as he climbed into Bumblebee's back seat with Kyoka, glad to be in the familiar seat. "Well, guess this is it. The sports festival is in one day." "I know, pretty exciting," Kyoka affirmed. "Wonder how everything will go." "Well, only one way to find out." Izuku offered a fist bump, which Kyoka took as BRC, Bulkhead, Sideswipe and Sunstreaker all rolled out of the base, with every human aside from Fowler in tow. Springer leaned up against the wall, cracking a smirk to himself. "Hee, ya know, those kids and heroes are alright. I think I made the right decision staying on this planet." "Ha, good to know," Jazz chuckled before putting on a serious face. By the way, Optimus, there's something I should probably tell ya now that the mission's over." He saw Optimus raise an eyelid at him as he made his way to the control console, typing in a few commands to bring up his research. "I wanted to tell ya about this earlier, but with the whole rescue mission thing, I held off on it since that was more important." Prime went up and stood next to his first lieutenant. "It's quite alright, Jazz, I understand. What is it that you have to report?" Jazz sighed as he brought up an audio file, one that he had been working on for several days now. "Well, I actually finished cleaning up that audio that was sent to Cybertron from Earth all those eons ago. The one that Alpha Trion saved for us, remember?" Prime nodded to him, urging him to continue. "Well, let's just say you're gonna have to hear this to believe it." Jazz pressed the play button and the message began. It was still chock full of static and interference, but much less so than when they had first played it, and they could now easily make out what the voice was saying. But the moment they heard the voice itself, they were stunned. Because they knew who this was. "And so, my friends, we send our message to the future. Even as the asteroid hurtles toward this planet, we stand together in the face of catastrophe. With courage, and good cheer. Yar! Rog!" The Autobots could make out additional roaring in the background, but that's not what any of them were focused on. Rather, it was the deep, baritone voice that was the focus of their stunned silence. It was an Autobot that all of them knew far too well. One who had earned a very notable reputation all across Cybertron. And the fact that it was him who had sent that message so long ago, it was almost too much to comprehend. Optimus stood in silence for several seconds before uttering the bot's name. Grimlock. And it's the end of Season 2 Part 11 of this What If. I hope you guys like it. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.